And I'll turn it over to Dr. Whaley.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Christie, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us this evening. This is one of many workshops that we have had throughout the course of the past several months in this room, and this is, again, another opportunity for us to roll up our sleeves and work together as we create a spending plan for our community over the course of the next several months. You know, a spending plan that will be effective on July 1st of 2026. And so before I get started, just want to share a few kudos and thank yous. This is a process that's really has started for us internally as a staff way back in September, and it really kicked off in a lot of ways with the workshop that we had together talking about the CIP and capital projects. And you know, we've been working on this internally for many, many months, and every department head has had an opportunity to share their needs with me as county administrator, and have been evaluating a whole lot of things over the course of the fall. And then as we transitioned into the new year, really focused heavily on the revenue side of our work, and certainly understanding, you know, before we utilize any of our taxpayers' precious dollars on expenditures, it's important for us to identify first our revenue streams. And so I sat in this room with Jennifer Brown, Pam Duncan, Mary Ann Davis, and Dave Wilson as our interim director of finance, as well as some other staff, and really had a great conversation about collaboration and how, you know, we can ultimately work together to identify the resources available to us from our taxpayers to accomplish our strategic goals and initiatives. And Jennifer and Bridget are here from the Commissioner of Revenue's office, and just want to thank them for their collaboration. Pam is not able to join us this evening, but has been a really critical player in that work, as well as Mary Ann from the assessment side. Our colleagues in fire and rescue and law enforcement and every other department head certainly has played a role in this work. And so I'm just continually thankful for this team, for the thought partnership along the way and the opportunity to work together. We're going to start high level tonight. I mean, we have a couple major topics to delve into, but really my focus is to start high level on some things and kind of get an early understanding of some of the factors that are going to influence us in our work. And as we transition in the next several months, you know, some opportunities for us to sharpen our pencil and challenge maybe some prevailing thoughts and how we can ultimately make really good decisions for our community as a whole. So we'll go ahead and just jump right in. So 5 major topics. I'm going to spend some time talking a little bit about revenue forecasts. And again, board members, these are very early revenue forecasts. And one of the things I want to share with you and the benefit of the public is here we are in January of 2026 trying to forecast revenue for the next 18 months for a budget ultimately that's going to end on June 30th of 2027. So here we are pretty early in the process, and ultimately working together with our constitutional officers and our internal staff to determine a revenue projection that's ultimately going to be one that we will utilize in our budget moving forward. So I'll spend some time talking about that, and then I'm going to transition to a conversation with Chief Ferguson and his team and talk a little bit about thinking ahead for the next 5 years and the resources that are needed in order for us to continue our strong service to our community. And then transition, we'll have Sheriff Creasy and Major East spend some time talking about their 5-year plan and resources that are forecasted in order to provide safety and security in our community. And then I want to allow Cliff Heller, as our Director of Human Resources, to spend some time with us talking a little bit about some analyses that we've been doing behind the scenes to prepare for today and potential decisions that may come forward in the next several months. And then ultimately have a conversation with the board about maybe some goals and objectives and what do we want to accomplish potentially, maybe not this year, but maybe next year and long term, starting to think long term about where we want to go maybe from a total compensation standpoint. So we'll have some short-term conversations, but we're also going to spend some time thinking long-term as well as we go throughout our evening tonight. So starting first with our revenue forecast, and I think it's important to have some baseline data, not only for the benefit of the board and just as a reminder, but also for our public as well. And so this pie chart reflects our entire budget, which is not just our operating budget, but also includes funds that are in your assigned and your unassigned fund balances, And so ultimately, the takeaway from this graphic is that there are multiple sources of revenue that provide the funds for us to accomplish our strategic goals and objectives in service to our community. But the vast majority of those dollars come from general property taxes. And so you can see that that is 59% of the overall pot, which is $88 million. And you can see also some of those other categories. We're going to dive in on some of those categories, not all of those categories, because again, this is a process and we're still early in this process. And so we will talk about some, but not all, as I said. So in addition to the overall pot, really the greatest focus typically in building budgets is on the operating budget or on the general fund budget. And so the day-to-day operations of county government, and we call that our general fund. And just like the overall budget, this is largely funded by general property taxes at the tune of $76.4 million. And that distribution is a little bit different because the pot is a little bit smaller, but ultimately 74% or 3/4 of our revenue comes directly from general property taxes, with other local taxes, state aid, and some other resources there that you can see on that graph. So given that that's the largest slice of the pie in the general budget as well as the overall budget, we're going to spend a fair amount of time diving in and talking about that. Also, just as a reminder to our public and for all of us who are working through this process, in addition to real estate taxes, which is 53 cents on the 100 for all of our properties here in Goochland County, we also have the ad valorem taxes, which are for those properties that are in the Tuckahoe Creek Service District, and that's 32 cents on each $100 of assessed value. And just as a reminder for us all, that is restricted. That is to pay off the Tuckahoe Creek Service District, and so that is revenue that comes to us, but ultimately is going to a specific source, and that's to pay the TCSD debt. Personal property taxes is also a significant portion of that general tax budget that I referenced previously, and it includes vehicles, trailers, mobile homes, motorcycles, boats, those kind of things that are considered personal property. Another major revenue stream for us is business equipment and machinery and tools, as well as local and state sales tax. Building permits from commercial property as well as residential property is revenue source, as well as interest on bank deposits. And it's part of our general, as a part of our overall all funds budget. There are some assigned and unassigned fund balances, and so there is interest that the county is receiving on those dollars, and that's a revenue stream that we'll talk a little bit about today. And then one that I wanted to provide some clarity on is the DMV reimbursement. You've heard me publicly talk about the great work of our Commissioner Revenue team, and the fact that those ladies have provided excellent service to not only the Goochland community, but everybody that comes here, get stuff done, because they know that we're going to get stuff done. But the number of transactions that they are doing certainly is significant, and so we do get reimbursement from the Department of Motor Vehicles for that work, because rather than someone doing that at a DMV office, we're doing it here on their behalf, and the state pays us for that. And certainly that impacts the transactions and the work that they do. So just proud of that, but want to spend just a moment talking about that later on today. So as I've started to unpack, current year revenue as well as forecasting future year revenue, we all know my background. That's coming from the public schools, so I know public school budgeting inside and out, upside and down. But understanding the cadence of collections in county government, municipal governments, is certainly something that I have learned a great deal about. And so I think it was just important as we talk about forecasting our future revenue that we understand the cadence of the year, particularly when it comes to real estate taxes and the collection process associated with that. And just for the benefit of the public, we do have an assessor. We have an assessor's office. We have several staff who assess not only our residential property but our commercial property as well. And the heavy lift really is done during the months of July through December, where they're visiting properties, they're looking at sales. There's a variety of variables and factors that they look at to ensure that those assessments are as close to market value as possible. So that work's done really for 6 months, and just last week they mailed out our notices to us who live here in Goochland County to say here is what your annual assessment is, and ultimately providing that notice so folks know. And then The tax bills that are associated with that assessed value go out in late April and early May, and all of that is based on decisions made by the Board of Supervisors with the tax rate ultimately that will be set. So our first collection of tax revenue, based on the January notice that we all have in our mailboxes now, will be on June 5th. And so those tax bills will be due, but that is revenue that is received in this fiscal year. So assessment notices in January. We have the first 6 months of this calendar year to prepare for that. Those tax bills are due June 5th, but that revenue goes into our current fiscal year. And so new fiscal year starts on July 1. We won't collect taxes again until December 5th. So those tax collections and that revenue that we receive on December 5th is based on a January 2026 assessment, but it goes into the next fiscal year. So here we are talking about assessments being done on a calendar year, but collections done on a fiscal year, and that creates some challenges just from a forecasting standpoint. So here we are again in January trying to forecast our revenue with this significant revenue stream 18 months away, when we know the assessed value of our property here in January 2026, but we don't know is what the January 2027 assessment is going to be. So that's a challenge for us because none of us have a crystal ball. We have data, we have a lot of maybe models that we can utilize, but that's a challenge trying to forecast that. So that's a significant revenue stream, and then another significant revenue stream is personal property. Again, that's our motorcycles, cars, boats, trucks, those kind of things. So on January 1, our Commissioner of Revenue's office determined the values of those personal property assets that are in our community as of that date. And then as the board moves forward in this process, you'll eventually set the tax rate for that property. And then tax bills will be sent out in the same time frame as the real estate value, which is in April and May. And so that collection on June 5th, the same date of collection for real estate property, we only collect personal property. Okay, so that's not the full collection, that's just a half-year collection of personal property only. Move forward 6 months, then that's when we're collecting taxes for not only that personal property, but also business equipment, machinery and tools, and public service corporation, which would be like utility kind of things. I think one of the challenges that we have in building budgets is recognizing that personal property moves in, moves out, values increase, values decrease, and so those values are updated on the 15th of every month. So there's a constant churn of values in and out that really impacts our ability to forecast this revenue stream in the future. So as we were preparing for tonight, we started to take a look at our current revenue for the FY26 budget, the year that we're in right now. And so given that this is a significant revenue stream, we started to unpack how we arrived at this number in years past as county government. And so, as I stated, each January the assessor identifies some values, and so I've listed the January 24 value on here because that's the value that the assessor would have noted at that time, and finance departments would have utilized that value to build the FY25 budget, the one that we just completed. So this time last year, the assessor provided a value of $9.6 billion of assessed value, and so that value theoretically could have been utilized to build the current budget that we're in, the 2026 fiscal year. And so that value from January of 24 to January of 25 increased by 11.4%. One of the factors that was used in the current year calculation was an increased expected growth rate of 3%. And so the $2.8 billion figure that you see there was added to the January 2025 value to get an assessed value for the current budget of nearly $9.9 billion. I think there was an assumption built into the model that was going to include a 3% increase. However, when those values were actually utilized in calculations, it ended up being a larger number. So theoretically with a 3% increase that historically has been utilized in building our county's budgets, that figure would have been $8.8 billion, but ultimately building our current budget figure that figure was different. So utilizing the $9.890 billion figure, you utilize that rate at 53 cents on the hundred. And so this time last year, the estimated tax revenue was $52.4 million. And so our current budget right now is set on $52.4 million. One of the things that we've been analyzing is trying to really sharpen our pencil and identify processes and how we want to build budgets together in the future. And so knowing that collections are done twice a year and you're crossing calendar years, we ran a projection based on our approved budget and the collections that we have received today through 12/31. So 6 months into the fiscal year, we have collected $23.8 million in real estate revenue. And then we forecasted, based on projections, what we expect to get in the second half of this fiscal year, which would be collected on June 5th. And we're forecasting slightly under $27 million in revenue there. So based on these projections, we're expecting that we're going to end this year at $50.8 million in revenue, which, given some of the assumptions that have been made in the past, creates a delta for us to be aware of as we manage our current year's budget and then forecast for next year as well. So that's in the past. Wanted to talk about how we can move forward here and certainly discuss processes as we create our methodology moving forward. So I don't want to steal Mary Ann's thunder because ultimately she's going to present to you all on February 3rd with a lot of detail. But this historical graph shows over time the assessed value of property in Goochland County over the past several years. And again, we do this every January prior to those notices going out. Based on her assessments and the work of her team, the current assessed value in Goochland County is $10.3 billion. And that's a historical increase over time. So that is 8% higher than the projections that she thought it was going to be in November of 2025, or I'm sorry, the January 26 is 8% higher than it was in January 2025. Staff was forecasting a 5% increase in November of 2025, just a few short months ago, but ultimately it is an 8% year-over-year increase. And so there are a variety of factors that potentially could go into that, including construction costs and the market and just basic economic variables. As we sit here today, of course, none of us have a crystal ball, but our assessors team is forecasting that 1 year from now, we may assume an additional increase of either 4 or 5%. 25 to 26 went up 8%. 26 to 27 maybe 4 or 5%. So there's a forecast for a potential slowdown in assessed values, but again, none of us has a crystal ball. So based on that 4% increase that we're forecasting for next year, we wanted to run a matrix to determine what we could potentially forecast for revenue next year. And so this number that you see in the top left, $10.3 billion, is currently assessed value as we sit here today in January of 2026. And so if you take that value and you divide it by 100 and multiply it by 0.53, the figure is $54.9 million. So as we're building this budget, one of the things that we're discussing internally is whether we want to account for 100% of those collections, or would we want to account for a percent that is less. When I built budgets in the past, for example, state sales tax revenue, I never forecasted 100% of that revenue simply because there are economic variables that may get in the way. So I attributed, just for conversation, an index of 97%. And that could account for, well, we're not going to collect 100% of all of the money because of economic variables, or there may be, something in there that isn't unknown. So took the 54.9, implied 97%, and came up with a figure of $26.667 million. And again, that's the December collection that we would expect in the new fiscal year based on today's assessed values. So then, forecasting, as our assessor said, well, you can potentially expect a 4% increase next year. Took that $10.3 billion and multiplied it by 1.04 and came up with slightly under $10.8 billion. Again, divided by 100 and multiplied it by 0.53, 97% index, and that was $27.7 million of expected revenue that we would get at the June 5th, 2027 collection. So if you add the December and the June together, that would be an estimated revenue of $54.4 million. So as we're thinking about high-level early projections right now for this significant revenue stream, that's where we are in pencil right now. But wanted to pause there for a second and see what questions board members may have, because I've been throwing a lot of numbers. I just wanted to see what may be on your minds.
I just want to go back to the, I mean, we do know now it's 10 billion, 300 million. Because we got the assessments in.
Yes, this is the January 2026 assessment, so this is hot and fresh.
That's an actual.
This is the actual number right now, yes, sir. Yes.
One sort of statement that I'm going to ask you to verify for me, but then one question. So when we talk about assessments, we're not just talking about the increase in somebody's current home value. We're also talking about new product on the market, right? So not just that my house went up 5% this year, but that a $600,000 house, we got a certificate of occupancy, so that adds the book. So that's also included in assessments.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. They look at the market. They look at surrounding sales around a piece of property, new construction. Those kind of factors go into that overall valuation.
Okay. And then, Dr. Rayleigh, when we talk about the taxable value, with the Tuckahoe Creek Service District, this is where I'm asked for the reminder, because I know that 55% of certain taxes don't get distributed throughout the county.
Correct.
Did they wind up in this 10.3?
No, the properties that are in the Tuckahoe Creek Service District are included in here and are taxed at a rate of 53 cents. Those properties are pulled out and taxed at a rate of 32 cents. They go directly to TCSD. This revenue, in addition to other revenue streams, go into the total revenue, and 55%, yes, Mr. Spoonhour, does go to help pay off that TCSD debt.
So that's not, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that percentage that goes towards the TCSD that's not going to the rest of the county, does that show up in here? Mr. Lyle shaking his head, yes.
It is, yes, as far as
The
part
10
of it.
billion is total real estate, but
Correct.
we're gonna take a percentage of that 10 billion, which is going to go dedicated to TCSD. And my question as a follow-up is, how much of that 10 billion is already spoken for because of its
That's my
commitment to?
question.
Yeah. So we really don't have 10 billion for the general fund, because we've made a commitment that, I just got dyslexic, 55% of it
Yeah.
is going to go towards TCSD service, and it has been for decades.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to get to is, how much of that 10 is TCSD district properties?
And I'm wondering if that's some of our delta.
Yeah, so, gosh, wrong button. So, one of the things we are forecasting is out of this, wrong button. Out of the $54.4 million, we're assuming a $4 million payment to TCSD to help offset.
From real estate, not TCSD ad
From
valorem.
real estate, not TCSD
So
ad
that
valorem,
brings
that's
us
correct.
to coming around and say 50 million for the
So-
general fund.
Yeah, I think that's where they're really explaining it, because I'm not sure the citizens understand it. Basically, the county is forking over 55% of the normal 53-cent real estate taxes that's collected on the properties in the TCSD.
Correct.
Debt service. So, in addition, they keep, the TCSD keeps all of the ad valorem tax,
Correct.
plus the county gives them 55% of the 53 cents per hundred that they collect, and we keep 45% for general services. So the county is contributing. The rest of the taxpayers, well.
We're not benefiting as much.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we give.
We're not keeping the full 53 cents
Correct.
as we are for the people in the
But
rest
as
of
we're
the county.
budgeting, I just want to make sure we're using the right number that we actually have that isn't contributed to that. So is that figure in a different fund, or I'm looking at David, I don't know, if you want to phone a friend, Dr. Ray?
It's treated separately. I mean, based on what was said previously, his transactions are separate. We
So
commissioner tracks the revenue in, do the 55%, it comes out of the revenue of the general fund. It's a negative coming out of the general fund.
Right.
and it's taken before we budget or after we budget?
After.
If I could just clarify for anyone who might not know Mr. Winfrey's conversation about that 55% and 45%.
Yeah, I probably confused us there.
No, you
I'm
didn't.
sorry.
You said it perfectly. I just wanted to make it clear to the members who might not know, that's not a policy decision by this board. That was pledged by the bond documents back in 2002.
In order to get the bonds.
Right, so that's not a like, oh, we could change that today.
No.
That is a pledge
understand.
of revenue to support the bonds that were issued. So,
And the earlier we pay the bonds off, the earlier all of those TCSD real estate tax revenues
if you
become
were to-
available to the general fund.
If you turn that around and look at it a different way, the citizens in the Tuckahoe Service District are only picking up 45% of their weight in the general funding of this county. Because the rest of it is going to
Yes.
pay off the bonds.
That's correct.
Where everybody else is, 100% of their 53 cents per hundred
Correct.
is going to pay salaries and fire trucks and
Correct.
police cruisers and stuff like that, where they're only contributing 45% of their revenue, their portion towards it. I'm not saying that's wrong, I just want to make sure we have our understanding, so everybody does understand it. I'm not taking exception with it at all, or blaming anybody for
right, nor am
not carrying
I.
their weight or anything,
No.
because it's, you know, the development in that area has been good for the county, for the whole county, there's no question about it. Potential for economic development and so forth, so eventually we all benefit.
And Ms. McGee, I want to simplify this, but I think it's
I
for
love that.
understanding.
Is it a little
Is
complicated?
we get asked the question, why can't we make adjustments to the ad valorem taxes and change it on specific case situations? But when it goes into an indenture, the life of that indenture, because bonds are sold to institutions, they're sold to other places outside of Goochland County, we can't go changing
concrete.
any of those rules.
Yeah.
They are in a contract as, any other bond. And
point.
so while it can be frustrating, and I know it is a point of frustration for a lot of people, this goes back 20 years. I mean, this is a bond issuance that unfortunately we can't unlock, we can't amend, part of our reason to want to pay it down sooner than later.
That's correct.
So as a follow-up to Mr. Spoonhour's question, the amount of assessed value in the Tuckahoe Creek Service District, taxed at both 53 cents and 32 cents on the hundred, is $3.238 billion. It's $3,238,059,000, which is also taxed at 32 cents on the hundred.
And of that, Dr. Rayleigh, is there a portion that gets the 55-45 split, or does every single piece of property in there get the 55-45 split?
I think Kinlock has a card.
Yeah, I would need to do some more research on that.
My recollection, which could be an error, was that it was anything new commercial as well as the Kinlock that had not been yet built. I think that is the case.
Yeah. So, board members, this is an early number based on the methodology described and current values countywide as of now. I think one of the things for consideration as we go through this process in the next several months is forecasting potentially projects that may be coming online in the next calendar year, which may be on our tax rolls in the new fiscal year. And so, at this point in time, these projects that you see in the 2026 calendar year and 2027 calendar year are not included in that previous number, simply because they have not received their certificate of occupancy, and nothing is final until it's final. So, this early in the process, we did not choose to include those in those forecasts. However, that would be a lever that potentially we could adjust as we go through our ultimate revenue projections. Do we want to include Amazon and Axial and some of these other projects, some with more value than others? That's something for us to discuss in the coming months. But I think it's just important for all of us to understand that they don't come on our tax rolls until we get a certificate of occupancy. So although we see some of these projects happening, nothing is final until it's final.
The only.
Go ahead.
Is if you could refine that a little bit and try to get a handle on when those things will be completed. I know that's pie in the sky.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, and then what the benefit, what the revenue would be, likely revenue. If you could ballpark that, it may help in the budgeting process.
Yeah,
You probably already done it, so.
I have informally, I would need to go back and sharpen my pencil. I think the challenge is, when would we get certificate of occupancy? Is it next May? Is it this coming July? What the value of a shell building with nothing in it
It's a
versus the
crystal
value
ball,
of stuff within it. That would be mostly a challenge with Ashland Road Axial. Until there's stuff in there, then it's a shell building, and so that's
Probably
one of the
unreasonable request. I'll
certainly
take it
can
back.
can do that. And I've done some things informally. I can go back and look at those again with the team, but valid.
My initial thoughts would be that we treat it like it is, we're not including it. However, as we're creating the budget, we come up with a prioritized list of, if revenues do exceed because these things come online,
Yeah.
what do we prioritize these monies to go towards?
I agree with that. That was my
Absolutely.
logic as well, Neil. I'm glad you came up with the idea of prioritizing the list.
And Doug, really just, if you could confirm, I think the first two bullets alone are approximately 400 million in asset value, assessed value projected. So, just to give people scale, this is, 400 million would be over $2 million in tax revenue.
Some of that's already assessed. I mean, that property is not zero assessed. We're already getting revenue off of whatever is being built on Ashland Road, just not at that higher level. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, so some of that's,
Incremental increase.
there's going to be a lift, but
Yeah.
not 100%. We're not going from zero.
All right. Great.
Before we get too far ahead,
Sure.
I just had a question about the 97% collections rate. How would that show up to the taxpayer? Would that show up as we're only assessing at 97% of the value, we're only budgeting? How would that show up?
Yeah, that index is simply just an internal calculation with an assumption that we would not collect 100% of that value. As written now, it would show up as a full tax bill to the taxpayers, but it would just be us not accounting for 100% of that revenue in our calculation.
Some people don't pay their
The
taxes.
business would view that as a bad debt.
It's also a buffer, as I understand.
It could be considered a buffer.
I just-
Historically, haven't we been closer to 98 point something? I mean,
One collection is 97, one's 98, right, Dave?
Instantaneously, it's about 96%.
96 is, all
Long-term, it's between 96 and 98, we chose 96.
right.
Thanks, sir. All right,
And
so,
one more thing, Dr. Riley.
sure, yes, sir.
The treasurer and the commissioner of revenue, they do a great job in going after those taxes that are not paid. Through the Virginia set-off fees, there's a lot of process, a lot of administrative processes to go out and get that money. It's tedious. But at 98%, 96% initially, 98%, when you add them, and 97 effective, that's a pretty good rate given the other counties in the state.
What were you seeing at your, my bank?
Sure, please, yeah.
What were you
Dave,
seeing
wanna
at,
come in, please?
this isn't your first rodeo. Were you-
What do you want to do? All right.
There's the hot seat.
I'm okay with the grown-ups.
Learn to keep my mouth shut. Sorry.
I know you come from other counties. Were they hitting 98 or below that?
I would say long-term, it's at the 97.
Yeah.
You have some years. you'll
Most
be-
people pay their taxes.
Well, in good years, you'll go 101. You'll go back and get more
I'm gonna say.
than the current billing because of collection activity.
Recover some.
Yeah, you'll get some
Prior
back here. We report old tax payments separately, completely separately. But Treasury and Commissioner's Office track the receipts
All right.
judiciously. So this is 98, 99 is very, very good.
My first reaction to that was it was a little smidgen of conservatism, which I'm for.
Yeah.
I'm for that, being conservative rather than, you know, maximizing everything and minimizing other stuff.
Trying to find the right index or right, whatever figure you want to use. And so one of the things I did, board members, is using the methodology that we just talked about with the 97%, let's call it an index for lack of a better term. Taking a look at our current approved budget, what we've collected to date, forecasted revenue for the rest of this fiscal year, and then looking at the potential FY 2027 budget at 54.4. If previous budgets would have utilized the methodology that we just discussed, current budget would be at $50.366 million. We're forecasting $50.8 million, so we think we're pretty much spot on. We'd be coming in 500 grand over revenue. So not too much, not too little, coming in over revenue. I think that would, so we just ran an analysis to say, hey, is our methodology even making sense? And based on at least 1 year of assessment, of analysis, it was pretty spot on.
May I just, and I recall your predecessor standing with his presentation to the board and saying, this is not a balanced budget, it shows a surplus. But now we're seeing that not only did we not have a surplus, but we may have a bit of a, move funds around. It's a deficit. It's not going to be around the bush.
Yeah.
How have we got a forensics as to where he was saying it's not balanced, we're going to have this 3% overage to we're not?
Yeah, we have Mr. Lyle, and so ultimately, I think the assumptions made by others in the past were that there was going to be a 3% growth rate in the assessed value from 2024 to 2025, but ultimately, the calculations of the past included a 14.71% increase. So this 9.8 number here, the utilization of this number resulted in an over revenue estimate that we are now working through, which has caused us to take a look at our current
So it
process.
was a miscalculated increase in assessments? Because I remember your predecessor saying that it was he used the word conservative, 3% increase in revenues.
Yeah, we've gone back and we've looked at the work papers used in the past.
Yes, sir.
And there was 3%. There was 3% added to an already 11.4% increase.
Okay, thank you.
So it was not a 3% year-over-year increase. It
Thank
was,
you for that clarification.
I've been able to track past documents and follow the math. Okay, So, some other revenue streams. We've talked about real estate revenue quite a bit. One of the things, as we've been determining how we feel we're going to end this fiscal year, is getting a handle on personal property and business equipment. And one of the challenges is you may be tempted to take what we've received partway through the year and multiply it by 2. But you can't do that, because partway through the year you have not only personal property, but you also have business equipment. So if you take a number that includes a one-time collection and think that you're going to get it the second half of the year, you're going to have some numbers that don't match. So we're still kind of trying to hone in on what we expect for the rest of this fiscal year. Jennifer and her team, Jennifer and Bridget, have been awesome, but knowing all the ins and outs and different things, I'm still not ready to forecast the rest of this fiscal year, but we are forecasting approximately $21 million in revenue, which is slightly under our current budget. So again, we're trying to rein in on that, but that's certainly a significant revenue stream that we need to get a good handle on, but that's kind of where we are now. Machinery and tools, current budget $650,000. We're forecasting a little bit of an increase there, approximately $25,000 an increase. And one of the things that Mr. Wilson and I did is we took a look at past receipts, current receipts. We ran trend lines. Does that make sense? And so if you think about, we were at 670, 653. We're in the ballpark there, forecasting a little bit of growth in that. And so local and state sales tax is another significant revenue stream. If you take current receipts times 2, theoretically we could get $6.8 million in receipts there. Current budget's 5.7. We've been streaming 5.5, 6075. So budget of 6.2 does show a positive trajectory, but not a significant and really steep curve. We ultimately don't know economically what's going to happen. Economy could slow down. We could get less state sales and local sales taxes. But anyway, that's a number that we're using early in the process. Building permits is one that I want to pause on for a second, because we discussed this a lot internally to get ready for today. So back in 24, $1.4 million in building permits. We did have a significant increase last fiscal year, and that was largely due to the Amazon building permit. So one of the things that we did as we were forecasting next year's budget is we took the Amazon building permit revenue out, and we looked at the last 5 years of actual receipts and building permits, and came to a one.
You know why the machine and tools dropped from 24, 25, 26?
Want to phone a friend, and I see Jennifer here. So Jennifer, you can help me out.
The equipment, the machinery and tools is on a sliding scale percentage. So without looking at it, it would be that the equipment slipped to the next and depreciated.
Depreciation, okay.
I can look into it and give you a positive answer, but we still have the same number. We still have the same number of accounts, the same people filing.
That was my biggest concern. I was wondering, are we losing industry or, okay,
No.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And Dr. Braley,
Please.
these funds do not contribute to TCSD debt service.
General fund revenue.
All right.
Yeah, all dollars, every dollar.
So if something's in West Creek, just because it's in the TCSD, we're still keeping machinery and tools and
Correct, yes, sir.
all the sales tax at Sunset Grill is coming to us.
That's correct. Yes.
Which also is important, I believe, for incentives that we've offered, correct?
Also, depending on when Amazon comes on, tremendous amount of machinery and tools revenue there from what they
Correct,
put inside that building.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't know when that's coming or. anything.
Estimates that were done long ago,
Right.
but would need to be revised and those models updated.
Right.
But, yeah, we're not counting for that in any of these figures.
Right.
Some other variables that are significant revenue streams, interest on bank deposits. I talked about that a little bit in the introduction, and we've really worked hard with Ms. Duncan to try to understand monthly receipts. And then we also understand in our own personal lives, interest rates are dropping a little bit. So we probably don't want to increase that budget significantly. And, we have made a few, are recommending a few withdrawals for some of the capital projects that we've discussed. So, you withdraw, your balance goes down a little bit, interest rates are dropping a little bit. So right now, we're looking at slightly less than the current budget for next year potentially, but that's a variable that we can continue to monitor over the course of the next several months.
Dr. Rayleigh, we changed fiscal policy where we were setting higher retained earnings, if I can use that phrase. And so it's because we're not looking at a 60, but more at a 30 range on that. How much of a decrease has that had in our balances and ergo less interest income coming in?
I don't think that policy decision has any impact on the interest that's coming in. I think it's the policy, the decisions that are made to fund, and when we decide to pull some money from CVTA or pull some money for unassigned fund balance or other things that, the board has decided on, it reduces that overall balance. So we're getting interest on less money as a result of some of these most recent decisions.
Right. And so
I don't know if it's
I'm going to go back to your
significant.
word. You opened up by saying you did not believe that policy decision has affected our interest income.
No, I don't think it's
Okay.
I think it's negligible. I think it's just the actual interest rates themselves.
I like low interest rates.
Yes.
Just me as a person.
Again, just a shout out to Jennifer and her team. They're crushing it. They're bringing in most recent assessment I saw over $60,000 with the December. So they're doing really excellent work, and so just a shout out to them because ultimately the work that they do in the Commissioner of Revenue's office contributes to our county's overall bottom line, and so that work is contributing to the overall revenue stream.
And I want to pile on with the compliments, but my understanding is that DMV effort basically funds that office. It pays for itself.
And then some.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I learned that probably the first week that Jennifer took time to educate me as
I'll
to
tell
what
you,
they were doing there.
I hear nothing but compliments.
They do great work.
I mean, if you've got a choice to come here or go to Broad Street,
We
it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
kudos.
So board members, that was a lot of revenue stuff, but I think, staying high level, thinking about potential expenses for the new fiscal year, and Cliff's going to spend some time talking about salary, but ultimately what is the salary improvement that we recommend or are able to fund based on our revenues for our employees. Don't know what that is at this point in time, but ultimately that's a factor that we have to consider. And then ultimately, what is going to be the impact of health insurance? And right now, we're forecasting between a 10 to 15% increase in health insurance costs. We have a lot of data regarding subscription rates. Cliff's going to spend some time talking about our competitive position with others. What does that look like? Is plan design in our future, or do we absorb the cost of the increase? And decision points that need to be made down the road, but I think that's a factor that we need to start thinking about. We'll know more later on this month, early February, maybe by the time I present to you on February 17th about what our actual increase is going to be.
Just, if I may, the word, I'm going to mispronounce it probably, summative.
Summative.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is a summative?
An end of the year evaluation.
All right.
And one of the things, and so I wrote that specifically, board members, because I am referencing salary improvement for employees with a satisfactory end of the year evaluation. One of the things as I've built budgets in the past is, if an employee does not reach a satisfactory evaluation, then they remain on the salary scale as they are, but this would be a salary increase for those folks who achieve either a 3, 4, or 5 on our current evaluation system. Satisfactory or above.
Yeah, 5-point scale.
On a 5-point scale.
So all or nothing, or is it more of a step increase?
That would be a policy decision that we could work through, but I know this is a little bit of maybe a potential change, but ultimately one of those things that we can discuss through the process.
And again, I'm working from memory, but there was some we did not see healthcare increases in a significant way this fiscal year. I seem to hear or recall flat, maybe, if Cliff is raising his hand. I'm not running the show, I can't call on
There
you.
was no increase in the health
Sir,
plan cost for the county last year.
tell me that again, please.
There was a zero increase for the cost of the county last year.
So if we average it, we're gonna see 5% over the 2
It's-
years.
Based on experience, and this is not atypical to other jurisdictions and other municipalities. Just a matter of how we work through it. I also wanted to share again, just high-level board members, we went through a process with our department heads where I asked them to present their needs to me, and I've met with each and every department head and have asked them about their personnel needs or non-personnel needs. And so ultimately, through those conversations, we had 35 new full-time employee requests, 2 new part-time employees. We had many requests for internal alignments as well as promotional opportunities for employees who have earned a credential or have taken on additional job duties and responsibilities. Rather than doing those adjustments throughout the course of the year, I'm really working hard to build a structure where we do those and build those into the budget, rather than a department head bringing me a pay increase in September when we've already built the budget and we have to adjust the budget. So trying to forecast those ahead of time is really something that we're working to do now. You've had some of the outside agencies present to you during public comment, and so those agencies are asking for, not every agency, but some are asking for increases, and the total of that is $219,000 above current, as well as non-salary requests, which are everything from purchase services to equipment to uniforms to supplies, office supplies. So you can see that those requests. One of the things that I'm really working hard with Dave and our team is identifying opportunities for efficiencies and what I call strategic abandonment. What are some things that we're doing now that maybe not necessarily returning the dividends that we are seeking, and are there opportunities to use dollars differently? And that's one of the questions that I asked of our department heads through the process. So still trying to identify those and hope to share some of those with you when I present on the 17th of February.
So the 20% or 20 position increase, not public safety, that 5% employee headcount growth, 3%, what is 20 of, what's the baseline? 20 of,
Well, other question, is this is what's requested, but this is what you're presenting?
This is
correct?
not what I'm recommending to you. This is
Good
just
answer.
overall requests. Yeah.
but 20 is, 20 over what?
We have approximately 313 full-time employees right now, of which 177-ish are public safety, so you have to subtract them out to get a number. So we're
I can
looking
do
at,
that. You said it was 370
yeah, no,
minus
no, 313. We have 313 full-time employees. We have 98 fire rescue employees, of which I think 3 of them are part-time. What's the number?
8 are part-time.
8 are part-time, so it's 90. Yeah, so 90, so you take that off, that would take you to 233. Minus are we at 77 employees? 78 right now, so you take that off as well. So probably a little more than 8% if we were to go, 8 to 10% if we were to go with the 20 for 200. No, it's less than that, more than that.
all right. And that, again, is a request for an 8% growth in personnel.
Yeah, bigger than that, sorry. Didn't do the math right. Need my calculator,
That's okay. Thank
or my abacus.
So, board members, I just wanted to share all of those requests, and ultimately my job to present is, a recommendation for, so I just want to start high level for today and let you know.
Some
big
of those
picture.
positions, though, aren't commitments we made to economic development folks, Lilly and Amazon, so far as building inspection and project management and things such as that, or is this above?
They
and
are
beyond?
above and beyond that because those commitments are in the current fiscal year.
All right, so, all right, thank you.
All right, board members, any other questions? High level revenues and expenses? All right, Chief?
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
sorry, we have outside agencies, what is that? I know we have Mutual Care, we have Pet
Fire.
Lovers.
Yeah, this is the library, this is Goochland Powhatan Community Services Board. These are relationships we have with, 4-H, other agricultural entities.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, we'll ask you.
Are we considering carving off space for unfunded mandates
From the state.
in the state?
Certainly make that a designated notation.
Just recent, recent news articles about increases in taxes and all that sort of thing.
Minimum wage.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. We're monitoring what's happening in Richmond very closely. I've asked to have regular updates so that we can know the impact of potential legislation on this.
Who do
I don't think people understand the potential impact and how significant it is.
Who do we have on the Hill doing that kind of data feed to us?
We have professional organizations that maybe staff are members of, Tara and her team, they have local attorneys networks. I have asked Paul Drumright to take the lead for us as staff. I'm going to ask him to give me a weekly update on bills of interest to us and who the patron is, where it is in subcommittee, those kind of things, because I want to make sure that I can share that with you as well. The county is not a member of a large organization that does that on its behalf, so we're using our own internal networks to get that information.
If I can give a shout out for Farm Bureau, they have a weekly General Assembly update.
That's great.
And it's exhaustive, as you can appreciate. Agriculture as an industry touches a lot. I know minimum wage, all of those types of things. And the tourism industry with the tip wage, again, minimum wage increases and things such as that.
That's a great suggestion.
And it's free to sign up.
Awesome.
And it's
What's
exhaustive.
the typical timeline of an unfunded mandate to go into effect? Do we have a-
July 1 typically, yeah, unless it's emergency
Okay.
legislation, but whatever is passed at this General Assembly session, we have about 2 months to prepare for it.
Yeah, maybe worth getting those.
Chief, I'm gonna pass the baton to you.
Sounds good. I thought maybe I was gonna say next time, please. Thank you.
Jeremy's like,
Next time, please.
I'll take a break for a couple of minutes.
I don't blame him. Dr. Riley. Anyway.
There you go.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Dr. Riley, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's an honor to talk to you tonight about the Fire Rescue 5-year strategic plan. I'd like to I want to thank Dr. Riley for his foresight to be able to put together a 5-year financial strategic plan for fire rescue and obviously other departments in the county, including Sheriff's Office. I think this is a good way to look at what may be needed and how we can spread that out over 5 years so that the impact is not all in 1 year. And certainly going forward, this could support many different budget processes. Fire rescue certainly is busy. I know you all know that. You all are huge supporters of fire rescue and public safety, and I know you keep your finger on their pulse as to what we're doing and the calls that we're responding to. I want to thank you for that. Just to look back a little bit as to how our organization is impacted recently with calls and so forth. Looking at our call volume, we just finished 2025 with the highest number of calls that we've ever responded to, 5,181 calls. That's a conservative 6% increase over last year. And if you look at the last 5 years, that's a 34% increase in call volume. If you go back to that year 2020 where COVID was, we really saw an uptick in calls after the pandemic year. It's really closer to a 64% increase in call volume if you go all the way back to the COVID year. So 34% increase over the last 5 years is what we're looking at with that. Of course, the breakdown of calls, about 76% of our calls are emergency medical services. But you have to also take into account that of those emergency medical service calls, some of those are vehicle accidents that also require a fire response. That could be a person trapped in a car, the car could be on fire. We could have multiple patients, we need more help on the incident scene. So the fact that we are a fire rescue organization, it gives us the best and the most efficient model to operate, to be able to handle what we're confronted with. We also are seeing an increase in ambulance transports and patient transports to the area hospitals. In 2025, our ambulance transports went up by 6%, 2,827 transports to area hospitals. That's the most, again, we've ever seen. I want to point out that we do bring in some revenue for ambulance transports. About 1.2 million annually is what it's got up to. We have a soft billing program, a compassionate billing program. We never burden a patient with sending a bill to collections. It doesn't go against their credit if they can't pay, and we would never want that ambulance transport cost recovery program to, prevent someone from calling for help if they needed help. But it's generating about $1.2 million annually, even with a compassionate soft billing program. We have a fair amount of write-off debt, which is a good thing to have when you're trying to demonstrate that you have a compassionate type billing program.
Chief, if I
Yes.
may.
Yes, sir.
How much of that write-off is insurance companies not paying?
Insurance most of the time pays. When you look at our big payers, and I'll call on Chief Watkins, he looks after that for us. I know Medicare, Medicaid, insurance companies.
When we looked at fiscal year '25, it was closer to 1.9 million total billed, and we recovered approximately 1.2. Most of those are contractual obligations.
Tell me what that is,
That
please.
is Medicare and Medicaid, you pay a certain amount, they will not pay the full amount.
Right.
Once you pay Medicare, Medicaid, you cannot pay any additional. So there's contractual obligations that actually reduces the total number of what you would recover from any particular individual.
I don't mean to be conspiracy theorist, but if there's an insurance company that says, these guys aren't gonna pursue me, I'm just not gonna pay it.
The insurance companies aren't the issue, but we try
Okay,
to
that's
focus
fine.
on having that person having to write a
I
check.
understand. I just didn't
Whenever-
know if somebody was leaving the system, they know that we're,
Yeah, it's a good question, and we've seen our collections continually to go up based on the amount of calls going up, and we have a very high collection rate, pretty much in the high 80% collection rate.
So it's also, it's something you see, I can't tell you the December 2025 that we're at 90%, but I can tell you that even the company that went out of business, we collected almost 90% of our net revenue from them in 2024.
what was the company? An insurance company?
Checking that out.
We had our former billing company had a cyber security attack, probably going back about 2.5 years ago, and we had to shut that operation down and move to a new billing company. So they billed everything that was in the queue that was waiting for us. Mr. Barr, do you have?
Yeah. Could you speak to, transports to hospitals involve a considerably expanded resource
It does.
exposure, correct?
It does.
From a time?
And it takes a lot of time, and that's a good segue. Before we leave that, I just want to say that the revenue we collect goes back into the general fund, and it supports fire rescue and all the other county needs. But to Mr. Varder's point, ambulance transports are time consuming. We see ambulances in the emergency department for extended periods of time with the patient on that stretcher. We're waiting for a bed available there in the emergency department. It's not unusual for once or twice a week for an ambulance to be stuck in the hospital for over an hour, waiting to get the patient, a bed. And some of the patients that we see, we're the patient's advocate, and we're going to do our best to make sure they need what they have, and we don't rush them off of our stretcher. We want to make sure that they're cared for in the right way. But yes, it is time consuming.
and Sheriff, you see the same thing with having the baby. I don't know, you have to keep those in custody folks, when you transport them, you just don't turn them loose, do you?
No, we don't just turn them.
It takes a while, right?
Would it be safe to point out that the recovery nowhere near covers the cost?
Oh, no, it doesn't.
So, I mean-
Nowhere near. It does help. It does help supplement the cost, but it nowhere near covers the full cost of our operation.
So we can't really bill out what our costs are, and that would be prohibitive.
Right,
I mean,
we bill for ambulance transports, over 100 agencies in Virginia bill for that. Very few agencies, if any, bill for any type of fire response. You've got to have a responsible party to know who to send the bill to.
Sure.
The patient is always known, so that the fire side of that is just not a practical thing that you would do. You know, we have our workforce made up of career members and volunteer members. We do fire and rescue service, and so when you look at an increase in transports to the hospitals, it takes our personnel out of the county for longer periods of time. And these are the same people that would go to the next call or a fire call. It could be a structure fire. And honestly, that's one of our biggest concerns is when we have, you know, 4 or 5 ambulances out of the county at one time, or maybe 2 or 3. But it does get to be, there's higher numbers. What if we have another high acuity incident that occurs in the county while everyone is spread over all the different hospitals that we transport to? But yeah, definitely looking at increases in demand over the last year and last 5 years. This is probably a better slide, looking at the activity there at our stations. I just want to point out to you that this is the number of responses out of the fire stations. Now, I also want to point out to you that we have not inflated these numbers. So, for example, if there's a vehicle accident and we have an ambulance and a fire engine and a rescue truck go out at the same station, and that would be a good day from the standpoint that we would have enough staff or volunteer and career working together to do that. We only count that response one time. It doesn't count 3 times. And so I want to point out 2 things to you. Company 3 in Centerville, they are just about maxed out as to what they're capable of doing, looking at the number of responses in and out that building. 2,004 responses out of Company 3 in 2025. So when the other calls come in Company 3's area, somebody else has to cover it. You have Mannequin, it's 1,395 responses. If you look at that, you can actually tell that 467 of those were over in the Centerville district. The West Creek Fire Station will help greatly with this to be able to spread out some of this workload. I'd also like to call attention to Sandy Hook Station 8. That's all we have at Sandy Hook is just an ambulance. It's been there since April of 2023. You'll know we're building a fire station in Sandy Hook, but the ambulance is quite active. When you look at how many times it went out for the different things over the past year, and we're seeing about 75 calls a month being handled there at Sandy Hook, which is a definite need for that resource, and it's a good location for it. Don't be fooled by Crozier Company 2. They're small but mighty. Company 2 has about probably less than 150 calls that actually occur in their response district. But Company 2 goes out the building almost 700 times a year, going to all these other districts to cover calls. So this is just a better look at overall station activity rather than just looking at incidents by district.
Oh, no,
Yes, sir.
Once the Sandy Hook Station 8 is built, do you think that will help out with some of the Centerville and some of the, will that help out countywide?
So it's already helping out countywide. You know, we actually use a system status management deployment model. For example, if Company 1 and 3 are out concurrently on a call, then Crozier automatically moves into the eastern end. And then if Companies 1, 2, and 3 are on a call, then Station 8 out of Sandy Hook leaves and goes into the east end. So that it's already assisting with that. I do want to point out when Company 2 and Company 8 leave their districts to go to the east end, there isn't that coverage in their district that they normally provide. We look at it monthly. Company 2 is moving into the east end of the county roughly about 25 plus times a month to cover. And Company 8 out of Sandy Hook is moving into the East End about a dozen times a month already. The meaning companies 1, 2, and 3 are all concurrently busy on a call. So it's already made a huge impact, and it's keeping company 4 and 6, Fife and Haydensville in their district, and they don't shift as fast to the east as they were before the inception of Station 8. Great question. Did you have a question, Saul?
I did, but I want to be sure.
Go ahead.
Nope, I've asked.
I just
several.
want, if you aggregate all the others that are supporting Centerville, it's a good percentage of the total calls.
It
That's
is.
going to Centerville,
It is.
which
Over half.
really bodes, I mean, answers the question, why do we need a station on Hockett Road? You know,
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir.
I mean,
Yes,
it's
sir.
just, it really hits you right in the face.
So we look at the response times, we look at the response times monthly, we look at those on the year also, and we have response time standards that we have to comply with. And, I think what we're seeing is that as the stations get busier, then we start to see the response times creep up a little bit. And we're hoping that when Fire Station 7 goes into service, that it will reset some of those response times, as well as some of that call load, redistribute some of that call load that's happening. I don't think you can dismiss the fact that Company 1, they have a lot of development, economic development potentially in their area. Eli Lilly will be in there first due. So Company 1 on the Patterson side of the county is certainly positioned well to be able to handle calls on that side of the county. And that West Creek station being in the middle will help both economic development corridors, if you want to refer to them that way. So appreciate that a whole lot.
My understanding anecdotally is that there's one location for transport that the staff does not like to call by name. Is a lot of the transport eastern end, is it, we have older, Avery Point is by design, an older population, and my understanding, again, this is anecdotal, is a lot of the transport is occurring in the eastern part of the county. And is there something that can be done to where we have contracts, don't we, with a transport ambulance service?
They did not have a contract
We
with
do
that.
not.
And that type of service just isn't really available. Coming out of the pandemic, we have seen contract ambulance services, their availability has been impacted by that, and there is no contract. Avery Point does not have a contract with the private ambulance vendor. They rely on Goochland Fire Rescue for all those transports. And we are seeing those transports are creeping up at Avery Point. They're surpassing Shelter in Arms in some months, bumping 30 or so a month. And we have been told by other fire rescue organizations in other parts of the country, in Baltimore and so forth, that we can expect about 80 calls a month there at Avery Point. So it's a community within a community, and they're senior citizens, and certainly, we're going to do our very best to serve them. I will say one thing about that. We had some of the best support of our citizens. We see that there at Avery Point. While it does generate quite a few calls, the citizens who live there at Avery Point couldn't be more supportive. And again, going back to the previous 2 slides earlier, we can offset some of that cost with the revenue recovery, and even Shelter in Arms transporting some of those patients out of there. Dr. Rayleigh and I, Chief Watkins works constantly with Shelter in Arms. And Dr. Rayleigh and I visited Shelter in Arms, and we explained our challenges and what we would like to do to help them. And honestly, I think it's helped some. I think it's the numbers are fairly steady. I'm not going to tell you we've seen a big decrease in that, but there's some sick people there, and they're very acute emergencies that are time-sensitive emergencies that can't wait for those private transport services to come in to handle. So, part of it.
Chief.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Could you, I would ask, just as we go further through this process, and it's great that we're, getting into some of these questions on the front end, but we've got, this budget is a living organism. Can we get some of the performance statistics included in this analysis? Because I do think that it's lost on the viewer how well this network model functions, and just giving greater context to what we're looking at. We definitely want to be there and make sure that the resources are there, But at the same time, I mean, we as a board have been very conscious over the last several years to make sure that when we saw a shift from 7 to 8 in terms of starting construction earlier, it was not at the expense of the model. You know, we wanted that model to still be operating smoothly, and frankly, we wanted to see those capital assets get built sooner. Was the logic behind it.
Mr. Waters, you know, for this particular session in respect of the slide deck and other county departments, we only included
It's fun.
a handful of slides compared to what we may have included in our traditional budget presentation. If there's any performance measures in particular that you'd like us to look at, we have a fair number of those. We may already have it pulled. I'd be happy to share that with you. We look at every month, Dr. Rayleigh gets a report. We look at response times per station, and we always can do a look back to the previous month, as well as, you know, for example, in December of 2025, Station 3 did 149 calls compared to 98 calls in December of 2024. So we have a good amount of that information already pulled. We can tell you that we go to Enrico Doctors Hospital the most of all hospitals, followed by a close second as St. Mary's and Shore Pump and DCU. We can also tell you that we go into the Charlottesville area about a dozen times a month to UVA and Arthur Jefferson for the Western citizens who may prefer to go there, or maybe that's the closest trauma center under certain circumstances. So be happy to provide any of that. Just let me know what you'd like, and we can send it your way.
Thank you.
We're pulling numbers right now for our annual report booklet.
Good.
And it might be some information in there that we already have assembled.
Thank you.
Chief, before you transition, just for the benefit of the community, I shared earlier this month that we're working on dashboards and metrics that we can share publicly. And so they've been leading the way, quite honestly, and they have a dashboard that's in beta form right now. We're fine tuning around the edges. I'd expect by the end of April, we would have that ready for public view. That folks can click on, see a lot of information right at their fingertips. So we want to make sure we provide
I think
that.
even with what I know about the fire rescue department, the piece of that I'm the most intrigued with is that heat map, where you can
Yeah,
open the
that'd be
map of
great.
the county and
Yeah.
zero in, and you can see the red areas across the county. And certainly we know where they are because we do it every day, but sometimes it's good just to have that to say, yeah, we knew we were right, but you can pick that out. All right, kind of transitioning to part of our 5-year strategic financial plan is staffing. And that's honestly what I guess the biggest part of this discussion is tonight. And we've looked at this, and we know we've had discussions with the board, and this board has supported us extremely well in the past. Year before last, we had 12 new employees come on board. Last year, we had 6, and we're grateful for all of that. But we took a more comprehensive look at what we think we need for the next 5 years to address what's happening today in Goochland. You know, what's on forecast, what's going to be happening, and what's coming in the door. And we have come up with over the next 5 years, we need about 55 additional firefighters to put into fire stations. I want to tell you what 55 firefighters will do for us. They'll do 3 things very well for us. The first thing is easily explained. We can open 2 brand new fire stations with 55 firefighters. We need 15 firefighters per fire station to open a fire station. That would be 5 firefighter EMTs, paramedics working a day, and that would be 2 riding an ambulance and 3 assigned to a fire engine. NFPA is recommending more than 3 assigned to a fire engine. We're taking the conservative approach. We understand that we can't do all this at one time, so we're suggesting that we need 3 personnel on a fire engine. So 55 firefighters opens 2 brand new fire stations. 55 firefighters also allows us to take our existing fire stations back out to Station 8, because that's one of the new ones, and bring those fire stations up to speed so that we have independent staffing spread between fire engine and ambulance. In other words, right now we have a cross-staffing model. We have a group of people that's on duty, and they shift between those 2 vehicles. But sometimes both of those vehicles are needed on the same emergency scene. And so what that means is they have to choose, do I take the fire engine, do I take the ambulance? Lots of decision-making when the tones go off. So the way we compensate for that today is we may send 2 companies to a call that one company should be able to handle alone. So hopefully if we can bring our station staffing up, so we have the 5 on duty per station, then that will help with overall efficiency of our response. I want to tell you, though, that Company 2, y'all know that Company 2 in Crozier, I said earlier, they're small but mighty, but they have a very small square footage footprint of a fire station. Company 2 also has a very fragile septic issue, and if we put too many staff members at Company 2, then it will overwhelm the septic system, and the septic system will fail. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we can keep Company 2 bumping along, and we're actively looking for property along Caldwell Road that could potentially be for the future rebuild of Company 2. So these numbers do not take into account getting Company 2 up to speed. Company 2 will continue to operate with 2 people a day. That's 6 people total. We have 3 shifts, A, B, and C shift. And so we would need 9 more people if and when, I guess it's not when we, well, maybe it is when we rebuild, Company 2 and find some property. So that's what we'll do.
Chief,
Yes,
and
go for
this
it.
is going to be a long answer, so I'm just planting the seed, we'll harvest later, if that's okay.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll try to make it.
You made reference that we need to get stations up to speed. Mr. Botters just mentioned a moment ago about how the hub and spoke, if you will, is working well. Is it really a requirement that a team be at a specific station if this hub and spoke is working well, given that we are Goochland, we're 28,000, we're not 280,000. I mean, to your high credit, the job is getting done. And so is this one of these work smarter, not harder type of things where we're not creating this behemoth where everybody's got 5 people per shift, 3 shifts, 15, when you can do what seems to be working pretty well?
Yeah, so, you mentioned hub and spoke. We don't operate with a hub and spoke type principle. We have, our 7 fire rescue districts in the county. We have citizens who obviously spread over all 7 of those districts, and soon to be 8 fire rescue districts with West Creek. What I can tell you is that, the business we're in, we try to be as efficient as we can operate. We're extremely resourceful. The Sandy Hook Station is a great example of what we've done there with minimal resources. I'll tell you that, we have a dangerous business, and emergencies occur. They're the same emergencies, whether you have it in Fife or whether you have it in Centerville. If you're bleeding to death, it's the same emergency. Fires destroy property the same way in all the districts, and the air hazard is the same. There's just no lines there that you really can draw. So we want to make sure that our apparatus is staffed appropriately so that we can, 1, operate efficiently, serve our citizens, and 2, we don't want to put our personnel in any more danger than they have to automatically assume. And it's combination, we're career and we're volunteer, and I'm going to show you a volunteer slide in just a second, but I think we can come back to that because I know there's other reasons you want to hear. So I've mentioned there were 3 things that 55 people were to do. When we talked about, one of those things was open 2 new fire stations. The second thing was getting the existing stations up to speed. I'll tell you that the third thing is it will give us personnel to maintain what we call a relief factor. And a relief factor is nothing more than being able to let people off duty and use their annual leave, their sick leave. People have military leave, they have a civil leave. Some get injured on the job, they have light duty assignments. So a relief factor gives us a few extra people in the system, 1 person for every 6 firefighters, so that people can take their job benefits and be off duty. It could be parental leave in the future, where people are out on FMLA, that type of thing. So all these different types of leave detract from our minimum staffing. So if you want to maintain the numbers, you've got to have enough staff to be able to maintain those numbers when people are off duty with their job benefits. And so that's the 3 things 55 firefighters do for us. We wanted to spread this out evenly over 5 years so that it wouldn't be as bumpy. So we're asking for 11 firefighters a year. We'll do everything that we have mentioned. Again, I want to go back to Crozier Company 2. It will not address full staffing for Crozier Company 2 when we rebuild that fire station.
Chief, I just got a comment on that.
Yes, sir.
From my own personal experience, that relief factor is critical for retainment. Absolutely critical.
Burnout. Absolute burnout. We've been very conservative to this point with our numbers, and these are too.
And board members, there's a national standard, but we have done our really deep analysis, and kudos to Battalion Chief Markey, who's really leads this staffing, is, what is the right staffing factor? Some use a 1.3, some use a 1.6. Our staffing factor is less than that.
It's
So
a little less than 1.2.
we're factoring for that, but it's less than what you might find regionally. So we're trying to, again, be conservative there.
Chief Markey can tell you that you need one firefighter for every 6 you have in order to have a particularly.
Correct, to be able to actually use their county earned benefits, otherwise they're gonna be in a position that there will not be any available spots, essentially, at the end of the year, they're almost having to forfeit time, so to stay within that, we've gotta, open up a spot every six people we have on shift.
I also want to mention that, because of the physical work that a firefighter, EMT, or paramedic has to do, if a firefighter paramedic is injured on duty, or maybe even injured off duty, they can't come back to their normal job. We could potentially put someone like that in light duty. They may have lifting restrictions, other type of physical restrictions. So at any given time, we may have 2 or 3 or 4 people working light duty because they sprained their ankle, or they may have rotator cuff tears, or it could be a cardiac issue, or it could be a situation, where a firefighter may have to go on blood thinners, for example. If you're on blood thinners, you can't do the job, because if you fall, hit your head, get injured, you could have a bleeding problem. So these are all things that we have to deal with, because we do not operate in an office environment. Yes, we have a fire rescue administration that's an office. Some of us work there. However, the firefighters, they have to work in the fire station. They have to always be fit for duty. And so at any given time, we might be managing 4 or 5 firefighters in admin doing things other than what they normally do because of those type of things.
Chief?
Yes.
I hate to keep interrupting, but I'm
But
sorry.
I want you to ask questions.
But
It makes it easier
I'm
for
hung
me.
up on something that, you said a minute ago that if we staff this thing by 2031 with 5, that's your target, right?
Yes, sir.
And that would mean that the various stations that would have to go rescue other stations because they were deficient, there would be less of that.
It would be less
So
of
to
that.
me, there's an efficiency thing that would allow each station to create more volume because they're not having to go and cover other stations.
We're
So
send-
if we factor that in, and to me, there's a justification for that.
It will help, Mr. Winfrey. We send 2 companies to a vehicle accident. One company should be able to handle the normal average vehicle accident. There's always the exception to that rule. Car fire, 1 company. We're always going to send 2 companies to a limited access highway like Interstate 64, 288, because of the hazards of just somebody crashing into your scene, which we all know all too well recently. So, yes, sir, it would allow us to handle a call with one station as opposed to 2. I'll tell you what else it'll do. We get a fair number of walk-ins. And so we could talk about Company 3 or we could talk about Company 5, because it happens to all the stations. Even Station 4 gets a fair number of walk-ins. But if one unit is out on a call, if the ambulance is transported and they're in the driveway at St. Mary's and the fire crew's in quarters, and somebody else comes in, knocks on the door having a stroke, then there's somebody there to help them. So you have some bench depth left behind for that second call. And the second call comes in very often. It's hardly just 1 call at a time. It never fails. It's multiple calls at one time. So that would all help with all of that if we were to, and we're working towards it, and we've done very well. And I'm telling you that our numbers are higher today than maybe I'm telling you they are, or trying to paint the picture they are. But what detracts the numbers and brings them down is that we don't have that relief factor to cover. Company 3, for example, could start off on paper with 4 people on duty, but hardly ever do they have 4 people on duty, because you've got how many people do we let off a day? 4 people could be off on annual leave on any given day, and then somebody may call out on sick leave in the morning. It's it's a fire rescue department, but it's all about people. It's about people. Looking at this, we broke it down for the firefighters to ask you all for consideration. As Dr. Riley said, this is just consideration at this point for 11 a year to smooth it out. We have included our support personnel on there for this budget year as well as going forward. We think that this is the right amount of support staff. I will tell you, Chief Gordon said earlier that we have 98 employees today, but 90 of them are full-time and 8 of them are part-time. So we run a lot of fire admin with part-time employees. Deputy Chief Gordon, you may think he's full-time, but he's a part-time employee. And he puts in full-time hours. I tell him, please take a break because he does such a great job. Chief Watkins is full-time. Chief Brooks, sitting next to Chief Gordon, is a volunteer deputy chief. So we try to be resourceful and creative, and we try to, do it the least impactful way. But this is what we're asking for this next budget year, FY27. We're hoping to promote 3 captains to battalion chiefs, so we can have our shift commanders can be battalion chiefs, because most places shift commanders, battalion chief, and captains are doing it here in Goochland. We are asking for a part-time fire marshal, and we are asking for our senior battalion chief reclassified to assistant chief. What that will do is spread out the span of control and the division of labor so that we have the right levels of rank in the supervision to be able to supervise and do evaluations and that type of thing. But these are all existing positions. We're not asking for new positions. These are upgrades, I guess you would say. So that's kind of what we have there. And
but these
yes.
these upgrades would, like, so if you promoted 4 people, then you'd be looking for 4 new folks to replace them.
Well, we wouldn't. Sorry, our bottom line, the bottom number wouldn't change. We would
Okay.
be position upgrades. What we would do if we promoted, and we built this into our budget request. If we promoted 3 battalion chiefs, we would put money in our budget for 3 lieutenants to move up to captain.
Gotcha.
3 firefighters would move up to lieutenant, but we wouldn't increase our bottom line
Okay.
number. We want to keep that the same. I'll tell you, and you'll see when Mr. Heller presents later, what if we can get things into alignment with other jurisdictions and other standards, then it kind of prevents the need for these crosswalk tables between, when you do a compensation study, you have to have a crosswalk table if you have a rank that's doing something different in Goochland than what's being done in a jurisdiction that you're comparing yourself to. So just things to think about.
Before you move on,
Yes.
Chief, this is more of a comment.
Absolutely.
Just for the general public. Yes, so if I look at this, so first off, I am glad that we're having this conversation. The 5 people per station has been something we've been going back and forth almost informally every year. So I think this is getting us closer to here's what we're all working towards. So every year we don't have to get into this big conversation of what's the right number, going to the national number, and for all the reasons you talked about. If I look at why this 11, I thought Cuddy explained it really well. I would synthesize that as, number 1, we're building Station 8 to cover an area that had been underserved, regardless of population. Our response times have gone from 13 to 14 minutes to 4 minutes. We're saving lives every week. So that's filling a hole that's been there. I would commit that Station 8 or Station 7 is intended to meet the future growth while covering some course. So I say that because you're looking at, back of the napkin, $1.1 million a year potentially just in EMS and firefighter staff.
100,000 a position.
At a $600,000 home, that would mean that this board needs to approve 345 new homes every year. This board has made a commitment to keep the county rural, and we are getting a lot of heat for focusing on commercial. This is exactly why we're focusing on commercial. This is not to keep up with the current growth, but it's to anticipate that rather than bringing in 3,000 more people over the next 7 years, we're focusing on building that commercial to relieve that number, to be able, and that doesn't include what's coming up in the next slides as far as ambulances and trucks and sheriff's deputies' vehicles and all
That's
that
right.
stuff.
That's
So
a good point, Mrs. Smith. I hadn't thought of it like that.
All right, I'm beginning to realize that we need to pay attention to affordability. You know, what can we afford to do? And I'm not sure, you know, and it's a little early in this process to get a real answer to that. But when we get into it, if we need to, would we be able to sort of skew some of this towards the future? And I hate to give away unborn children, I'm not, you know, but we do anticipate some of the commercial revenue coming in the future where we'll be able to afford better.
Right. That's
And
why
so
we
if
spread
you've
it over
looked
5
at,
years.
you know, what you've got is 11, 11, 11, 11, you know, how would you look at it differently? If the affordability dictates that we really can't do it right now, but we can do it later on.
Well, you know, it's my job as your fire chief to tell you what I think we need.
Sure.
And we understand that it's your job to be able to figure out what, you know, what you can do. And so we appreciate that. You will always get an honest answer from me. I will tell you what I think we need. And that's exactly what I'm presenting you tonight, is what I think we need to cover what's here today, you know, what's going to be here in the next year, and then what we're bringing in over the next several years, and opening 2 new fire stations. So, you know, I understand that, Mr. Winfrey.
Yeah, but by no means am I saying,
Do the best you can.
as I'm saying, we don't support you.
It
You know, I'm telling you.
never comes into question. Never comes into
I think
question.
it's primary in all of our minds.
Right. I do want to point out that we are a combination department. We put equal emphasis on recruiting volunteers. And our volunteer recruitment and retention coordinator, Lisa Brown, and Deputy Chief Gordon, brought in a record number of volunteers this past year. 47 volunteers were brought into the organization. 40 of those will be operational volunteers that'll ride the fire engine and the ambulance, and then there's 7 of those volunteers that are in support roles, such as CERT members and emergency management volunteers. And so two new auxiliary members.
Just 2?
Just, well, you're 1 of 2, so that's a good thing.
50%.
Yeah,
At 500.
50%.
Saw him in a
Doing
picture
good. Mr.
somewhere.
Lyle joined the organization. We're glad he's a member, and is getting an eye-full and eye-opening experience, so we appreciate that. But yeah, we're doing really well on that. Last year, you know, it was closer to 32 volunteers, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot. That's a good number of members coming in. I will tell you that we're building our volunteer base, and we certainly, you know, need to do that because we have about 160 volunteers. I'm just giving you that approximate number, and we have 98 employees. And then if you look at our auxiliaries, you know, there's another 50-plus members that are auxiliary members across the county. And so we need all that. That helps make us more efficient, keeps the cost down. And certainly we're going to keep doing that. And I want to make sure that we're clear on that. 47 volunteers brought in 2025. I don't think this will be, you know, necessarily new to you. We had a CIP meeting before Christmas, and we got real detail with their apparatus needs. 2 things that we probably didn't talk about in that meeting is on the outer edge of this 5-year plan, we'll need to upgrade our self-contained breathing apparatus. You know, when you go into a smoke-filled atmosphere and you're wearing a self-contained breathing apparatus, or immediately dangerous to health and life atmosphere, IDLH atmosphere, you know, you need to know that equipment is 100%. We maintain our equipment 100% readiness, but it is recommended that you replace that, you know, every 10 years or so, because there are new safety standards that come out and more safety features incorporated into each generation of SCBA. But as far as the fire engines go, I don't think that'll be you all are great. You've positioned yourselves to save almost $800,000+ of taxpayer money by considering a proposal that we brought you in December for 3 new fire engines, one of those being the replacement of 611 that was hit on 288, and 1 new tanker, 2 budget years worth of apparatus bought at one time to get those price breaks, but more importantly, and just as importantly, I guess it's not more importantly, shorter delivery times, because we need the apparatus sooner rather than later.
Board members, that's going to be on your February 3rd agenda for your consideration.
And that's, I have our entire team here, and that includes the sheriff and the major, because they're both fire rescue members, lifetime fire rescue members. And if there's anything you'd like to ask, we're here to try to answer that for you, or get that answer for you and give it to you at the next board meeting, so.
Does breathing apparatus work with beards though?
I can get fitted with a gas mask. I just have to shape the place sometimes.
Somebody's got to drive the tanker, sir.
I'll drive that.
Chief,
Honorable Lyle standing there.
Chief, I think Mr. Waters might have. a
Oh,
question.
sorry, excuse me.
I've got more comment to make because I am seeing something
Oh, I'm sorry.
year over year that
I'm sorry.
I really would like for us to address this year and next year and really get to it, because we were looking at a CIP budget that has a deferred maintenance CapEx issue. I've said, that's not the first time I've said this. We've got considerable capital expenditures that are coming down the pipe that frankly, in many instances, could have been addressed sooner. I would say that while there are there are virtues to pay as you go and to more with less, we are having a deferred hiring challenge and making sure we've got the adequate resources. And then I want to plant the seed, because I really do think we've got to find the ways, whether it be, we've got to dig deep in our financing, we've got to see the ways to make sure that, I appreciate Tom's question greatly, but we've been asking the same question for too many years now. This says 11 over 5 years, but what if we do 5 now? And I just see a ball going further and further
Kicking the can down the
Yes,
road, yeah.
and
That's
I
what I'm
know
saying.
there comes with that, okay, we've got to find those funds, we've got to do it, but I'd like to plant a seed, we've got to do it. And I think the need is there. We're trying to, we've taken actions that, help prepare the county for economic development, to try and work overtime to get our revenue ratios right. We need to make sure these resources are there sooner than later. We need to be proactive in this. And it's, like I said, there are virtues to staying 100% behind pay-as-you-go model, and there are virtues to more with less. And I don't see this being at the sacrifice of our work ethic in our organization. I just think we've got to be honest with ourselves that 55, if 55 meets these numbers that the chief is talking about, we need to endeavor to get there.
So one thing that you have to understand, we don't always have a pool of applicants who apply for our jobs that have previous experience. Every department like us is hiring firefighters and trying to get that pool of applicants that already have experience. So we have to put everybody through a training academy. And we have a training academy going right now that's going to graduate in February. So by the time you bring someone in that may not have any experience, train them, get them to the point where they go through a field internship program after they come out of the training academy, and then get to the point where they can be a released driver to drive the fire engine, ambulance. You're looking at 2.5 to 3 years before an employee, I'll just say, can work on his or her own. And so that's the other challenge that we have is providing the training, allowing a person without the experience to get the experience. When you become an EMT, you get a certification card, and Jennifer can tell you that she's been an EMT for many years. But you have to have some time to do a field internship program. We call it precepting, so that you understand how to gain your experience and use those skills. It's even more so for a paramedic, bigger learning curve for a paramedic. It just takes a little while.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good
very
job.
much.
Major, Sheriff?
Yes, sir. Raise your back there.
All right, I would be remiss if I didn't add something, and I hope Eddie doesn't mind me doing this, but as many of y'all know that my my childhood home burnt down, it'll be 2 years coming up next month, when my mother was still alive. Luckily, she was in the hospital with COVID. She ended up passing a year later, so we have used the fire department and rescue services quite a bit in the past few years. And I can tell you how it feels personally when you watch the fire department run out of water and watch your house burn to the ground. You know, I'm not saying that the fire department did anything wrong that night. Luckily, I've been a volunteer for over 30 years, and I know the problem was manpower and being able to get trucks there with water. So you just put yourself in someone else's shoes and just think about when you do make that decision on the number of staff that the firefighters need, because I support them 100%, but I know firsthand, you know, by losing something that, you know, that meant so much to me and my family over the years. And truth be told, I think that's probably what did my mother in with losing that house. So when you are, you know, probably not a good idea for me to mention that going into me asking stuff from the sheriff's office, but I did want to share that. I hope you don't mind me adding that, but firsthand information there, I know how it feels. So, all right, moving on. One board, Dr. Riley, thank you for having me tonight and also having Major East with us. Mine is pretty short. I'm not coming to you asking for 10 deputies or anything like that this year, but I am coming for an ask. And before I do that ask, just get a little bit of stats that we've had, is just so making you aware. Is our calls for service in 2025 are 40,618, all right, which is a 7.7% increase. In 2022, it was 30,986. So it has been a substantial increase over the years for us. And in that, that was all calls for service for GCSO only, not the animal control, not the fire departments, not the phone calls into our dispatch center, which is my ask, is effective dispatch. They had 63,017 phone calls into dispatch, and keep in mind, due to a somewhat of a failure on the IT side, we lost a month of data. So it averages about 5,000 to 6,000 calls is what we get approximately a month. That does not include the 911 calls. We got 11,159 911 calls.
So that's 60 plus 11.
63 plus 11 plus 5,000 or 6,000 that we lost in data collection. So equals out to about 111 calls. I'm sorry, 219 calls per day, roughly, that dispatch handles, which is a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Moving forward. So the quick ask for this year is a 2 dispatchers or communications officers. We also are going to be asking for a IT director as well. Forecasted into 2028, you see 2 more dispatchers. 2029, 30, 31, 1 dispatcher as well. Then you go into 2029 where we start getting deputies, court bailiffs, court security specialists, and even a HR office assistant / HR specialist, director kind of thing. With that, I will say the 5-year plan that we've done, I started doing this with John Badusky when he was here. And one thing I learned very fast is, just like I'm sure all of public safety, is very fluid. This thing has changed since Dr. Rayleigh took over. I mean, it changes all the time. If we hear that an apartment complex is coming up in West Creek Parkway, you know, or if another apartment complex, not saying that there is, but if we would hear that, we would have to change this to adapt. If we hear that there's another Avery Point coming in the western end of the county, you know, we would have to change this here. So just wanted to make sure everybody was clear that this is fluid. You're looking at this right now, but if we get more growth, whether it's commercial or residential, this may change. I'm sure it would change.
So Chief, I'm sorry, Sheriff, so when we have the comments on the cases, do you include that in those comments to say, are you approve this subdivision, I'm gonna need another half a deputy here?
No, they are not included in that. I'll be honest with you, I've never been asked that.
I wonder if we should start doing that
I think probably so.
for fire rescue and.
We plan when we hear it's coming, we go ahead and plan for it.
Right, but we're not planning for it or we're approving it because we're not told that we need it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think if that's a great time, we already have that mechanism for comments to say, yeah, this is probably gonna cost you, we're gonna need 2 more deputies.
Yeah, it's sort of, inside conversations with different members of the board that has been said.
Clarify what you were talking about.
So on staff comments, like each department says, what are the impacts of the things that we're going to pass? So if we're contemplating a subdivision in the East End, each department can talk about the impacts. It would be helpful if fire rescue and all public safety said, this will potentially increase to where we need another half a deputy or full-time deputy.
I think that, we're gonna move forward with that and probably have staff reach out to you guys to get your.
Right, there's been conversations on having that already. And we have, for over several past years, we've been trying to catch up with the curve since we have been behind so far in our numbers, but y'all have done an excellent job on helping us get there.
I know, Sheriff, in conversation, you educated me that the type of development also has an impact, and apartments were mentioned
Correct.
not too long ago. And is it, I've heard the phrase, they're call generators.
Yes.
If they generate calls, you got unique things where you got eviction notices. Proximity to a neighbor creates more conflict, and so if you get 300, 400, 500 units in close proximity, you took my parking spot, you didn't throw your garbage in the can properly, and then all of a sudden your stereo's too loud, and so you get calls coming. So the type of development is going to be indicative of what your fluidity is going to be. Same with Chief. We get a lot of Avery points, and they have balance issues and cardiac issues, and they're going to have higher call volumes. So yeah, somebody has given me numerics for every 1,000 residents, X number of deputies or firefighters are needed. And that's, again, a statistic, but it's a starting point that we can start measuring the impact. As Mr. Spoonhour said, 500 unit apartment complex coming in, what's the impact on it, and does it pay for itself? And it's like, no, it's a lost leader. We get more residents, but they aren't going to cover the cost of the services they require.
Right, I would say just a sort of right now, if an apartment complex would say that, hey, we're coming to West Creek Parkway, and it's gonna be roughly a 2-year time, when they put the shovel in the ground, it'll be a 2-year time frame. So that's my understanding from talking to
Me?
owners, the other people who build apartment complexes. But I would ask for 2 for every single apartment complex, is what it would be for, at least 2.
Chair. I'm intrigued by the 5-year plan, and something that comes to mind is if we were to say, okay, we had a 5-year plan, and let's even say it was rolling. So in 2028, we had 2032. The first thing we could do is check, did we track to that year's projection? Because I think that is good by the board's part. I mean, we could say we met that identified need. Then we could have an actual, which is the fluidity you're talking about, and we could go into this knowing, yes, it's a fluid model. The first thing we can do as a board is meet the requested need. The second thing we can do is gather enough data to figure out what that potential, what a good rolling average for that gap is. Maybe it's these people plus .75 or something, you know, to take into account the fluidity. But we gather that data in that way. What you asked for, where we varied. What you asked for, where we varied. And we roll it up that way. Does that seem, I mean, just conceptually, does that seem like something we could work towards?
Yeah, I understand definitely what you're saying, but I will say in past, it was when there was talk about different growth or things coming to the county,
Yeah.
it would be reaching out to either board members or county administrator, not Dr. Rayleigh, he wasn't here at the time, but telling them directly, you know, hey, this is gonna require, we're gonna need this.
Yep.
So I was doing that directly with them
Okay.
at the time.
I mean,
Sorry, Charlie.
build a better model. I'm just, you know, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, modeling is only as good as the stuff you put into it. So we just want to build a better model.
And this is just straight ask, this is the, 5-year, like I said, projection.
Yep.
That I think that I believe that what we've done is solid. The 10 deputies that y'all gave last year really gave us a big boost. Now it's just filling them. That's where we're struggling, and that's not a Gucci thing, that's a nationwide thing, where law enforcement, you just cannot get quality people.
Well, and it'll come up later, and keeping up with the pay demands that make the
correct.
market so challenging.
On that, kind of that same note, and this isn't just for sheriff's departments across the board, if there are asks on a 5-year plan that aren't fulfilled, I would like during presentations, a carried forward section, like, we asked for this, but we did not receive that. You know, I think that would help us gauge at whether we're actually on target or how far off target we are.
You do a pretty good job with that.
I'm sorry?
I think you've done a pretty good job with that. That's fine.
Right, yeah, I just want to make sure we don't miss it.
Well, I think we should, one of the things we put in 2 years ago was every position that was asked for, they didn't always tell us. So we'd find out post-budget, well, I needed 2 positions, and we were never told. So the ask was of county administrator to say, okay, so we've got 35 positions were asked, here's what I'm recommending filling, here's what we're leaving on the table. And then the board would say, well, whoa, you kind of need to come up with the money for this.
Which is some of it now is what y'all just saw in the 35 unit, y'all, at least this budget, the way Dr. Rowley has it now, which is a whole lot, my experience in dealing with 7 county administrators in 6 years, I can tell you that it's going a whole lot smoother. So just, I mean, that's just factual.
Equal number of board members too, well,
Yeah.
yeah, different board members to deal with. I'd just like to say my reaction to this is it's reasonable. Something, what does it mean?
So going into the dispatchers, since that's basically the easiest one, we're asking for 2 communications officers. I will tell you sort of same thing with the fire department deputies. I've talked to y'all before that if I hire a deputy right now, it'd be usually a minimum of 18 months to get them in a car by themselves and can answer a 911 call. At least 18 months. A dispatcher is probably about anywhere from a year to 14 months, I would say. And a lot of that is because the dispatch academy one is only 3 times a year. So you only got 3 shots at it. We do an in-house dispatch training, and then they go to their field training. So today, I just reviewed a weekly training for a dispatcher who's in training, and it was week 21, 22. So on the job, hands-on training. So there's a lot, even though the academy that they teach up at the regional academy is only 1 week. That's all it is 1 week. So we have to take care of all the other training in-house. So, which we do, and they actually do a pretty darn good job at it. I mean, that's one reason why our supervisor, Tammy Witt, was recognized statewide from the Virginia Sheriff Association for what she done with our training academy.
We have the medical dispatchers too.
We do.
And is that all, or is that one per shift?
No, every dispatcher that we have is emergency medical dispatcher, which with the call numbers, as you see, where fire and rescue is going up to 51,000 and some change. For those calls, every emergency or medical emergency, the dispatcher answers the phone has to stay on the line with them. They've had it where they coach people doing CPR, doing bleeding control, childbirth,
Really?
saw that. Yes, childbirth. I know a couple dispatchers are gonna be recognized at the award ceremony that the fire department's put it on for a call that they did, but they have to stay on the phone with them. And I can tell you, when you have that going on, and, you know, I started off as a dispatcher. We didn't have emergency medical dispatch when I first started. But you still stayed on the phone a little bit when you could. You know, and then another call comes in, you have to hang up on them. But now, they stay on the phone with them. They can be on the phone with them for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, whatever it takes to get them there. But you only can take so many calls. You know, right now we try to keep 3 dispatchers in that center. My goal is to get it up where we have 5, maybe 6 in there. And I can tell you, if we get those seats right there, they can take them because they're open.
Yeah.
All right, we got plenty of room for them. So,
I've seen Michael in there doing the wiring on it, so.
yes, that sort of goes into the next conversation. But the 2 communications officers, I can tell you, there are friends of ours in other jurisdictions. We had a sergeant from Buchanan Sheriff's Office that called 911 for a incident going on in another jurisdiction, which is very close to us. And he called 911 and they put him on a recording. So on hold. And he got to listen to music for about 15 minutes. You know, so he ended up hanging up and calling Buchanan's dispatch, you know, for assistance. That is something that is unacceptable. That we, as long as I'm sheriff, we will never do that. But we have to plan for the future and having 2 now and then 2 next year and then 1 each year afterwards, so we can staff up dispatch in there. There are lifeline for fire and rescue, for Buchanan Sheriff's Office, for animal control, and the citizens. So, in my opinion, it just.
So the point is, you're getting all the calls through your dispatch,
Yes,
all public safety,
everything,
including fire.
everything.
Sure.
They even monitor
That's a
the
good
radios
point,
for
to
school
make
buses.
clear understanding.
Yeah.
Sheriff, you said that you've got plenty of the capacity now. I can't remember.
I'm sorry?
You said that you have plenty of the space, seats
Yes.
for them now?
Yes.
Do you, is that dispatch center, is that gonna be part of the new courthouse? Or is that gonna
No.
remain the same?
Same.
And I guess long-term, is that space gonna be enough as you need to grow more dispatchers?
I would say for the next probably 25 years, it's gonna be enough. We
Okay.
can fit 9 in there,
Okay.
24/7.
Okay.
Sheriff, would it be safe to say that the actual room itself, where calls are taken, video monitors, is 25 years? It's all the other support systems around it where you need additional office space in the future and some expansion?
Absolutely, we do. That is, I'll say, the Emergency Operations Center, each breakout room is intended to stay unoccupied. So if a emergency operation event needs to happen, say the snowstorm that's coming up, where we could put other agencies in the breakout rooms. And I can tell you right now, out of all the breakout rooms, we have 1 open in there because we're out of space in there. I mean, we are completely out of space for people.
And so you mean they're full up on?
They're used for offices.
Right, they're not not breakouts, just other equipment.
Right, we only have 1 room that can be used,
Right,
you
okay.
know, that as a breakout room. You know, which is definitely was not the intent. All right, so moving on to the IT director, I'm gonna turn this over to Mike in a second. But I will say that this is something that we've been working on for a while. I'm not gonna go into the past issues or anything like that with IT, because, you know, one, we do appreciate and enjoy working with the current IT department right now, but there are some things that we need some specialized IT knowledge. Mike is our IT guy. Right now, he is playing chief deputy and IT director. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mike.
So in a nutshell, and this is not unique to Goochland, this is public safety in general. The software and hardware that public safety uses on a daily basis is very unique and very specialized. So it's kind of, as the time goes on, we need to have an IT director that understands that software and that hardware, those systems. And they have to be operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If something goes down in the middle of the night, we gotta make sure our phones are working, we gotta make sure our computers are working, because the guys and gals on the street depend on us, or depend on that system to be functional. So, as you can see, some of the software we operate, which is nothing that the county uses over here, and I've worked a lot with Dan and the county IT department, keep them up to speed as much as I can, but they have a lot of responsibility over here on this side of the house to maintain order for the entire county. We need somebody at the sheriff's office to handle dispatch IT, to make sure the MDTs are functional, make sure all the network routers and stuff inside the call center are up and running and operational at all times. There's been many times where I'll get a phone call at 2, 3 in the morning, and I'll have to remote into the server, and I'll make a change to get CAD back online. So, like Mr. Law said a few minutes ago, I was under the dispatch center running wires for the new dispatch console. So, been wearing multiple hats. I probably spend at least 70% of my time doing IT issues for the sheriff's office, which takes away from my duties where I should be working on patrol, working with investigations, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the sheriff's office. David, with the county, was saying that many of the counties around us are going this way with the having an IT director support public safety, who actually is assigned to the comm center or the sheriff's office or whoever oversees that part of it. And I think it's just a definite need that we need to have moving forward to get that type of training so we can make sure our systems are operational. And we have over 30 specific applications that are unique to us. I mean, that's our body cameras, that's our car cameras, just a whole bunch of different things that I know Dan and his team just don't have time to really dive into that we need to have functioning all the time. So,
Would you remain in the capacity of assisting, like the IT director?
so he'll report to me ideally, and then I'll be able to oversee the operation. But one of the big things that I've noticed also is that we have what's called a NICE recorder. So whenever we have 911 calls that come to the center, they get recorded, and every so many years that's going to be replaced. In the past, that was not on a schedule to be replaced. We found that as an issue and had to put that into the budget here last year to get it fixed. Same thing with a lot of other options or other items beside the center that are on a schedule. Our 911 Vesta phone systems, they cost, we got to replace 5 of them. It's $200,000 to replace 5 of them, but that wasn't budgeted for, and it was kind of like it was not thought about in the past.
I guess I was just wondering if they got injured or sick or unable to perform their duties, would you still be available as a temporary asset to
Yeah, I enjoy IT. It's my thing. So
Okay.
it's hard for me to keep my hands out of it. So the sheriff wants me to stay out of it as much as I can, so I can do other things. But I'll still keep my hands in that pot, make sure that ball is rolling in the right direction as well. We also have a deputy who does IT reports as well, so he'll do a lot of day-to-day maintaining MCTs and make sure things are functional. So.
And we have a deputy that used to work for the IT department here.
Gotcha.
So
That was gonna be my question. I thought in like 2023, we moved them over there for that support.
Well, he resigned from Goochland County and came to work and applied for the sheriff's office, so we hired him.
Okay. The stuff you're talking about here, I know you're calling it for the sheriff's office. Does any of this support the other public safety, fire rescue, animal control?
Yes, because anything like fire rescue, animal control, their laptops and iPads all attached to our CAD system. So we will help support their computers, make sure they're connected to the CAD system, and ensure they're having good connectivity. So.
Looking at your staffing plan, I've never seen when a new IT director gets on board anywhere that they're a sole contributor.
Yeah.
So I think you should be planning, once they get in there, that you're going to be building your IT staff.
Well, I'll tell you, that's gonna be one of their, his or her assignments is, because we don't have a IT budget. It's always been done by the county IT.
Right.
So that is something that, because it's still gonna be like hybrid you know, some with the county and some with us.
Okay.
And they will be working with them, one for budget stuff, you know, forecast and be that forward thinking that we need. And also, you know, what kind of staffing are they gonna need in the future?
Yep.
But we're waiting to get them on board with their expertise first.
But it's potentially another board, you could say, well, we had the conversation, we knew we were gonna
Neil
have
said
it.
we could have.
We were gonna have it.
Well, I would say, I mean, I've had just conversations one-on-one with Dan, and, you know, about our IT on this side. And I think it's a great way for us to start the conversation, you really start collecting data on the new technologies that we are seeing around us, where so if we hire the right IT director, what opportunities for agents by technology agent, you know, AI agents, things like that, that are allowing for efficiencies to be implemented. Now, I don't think anybody has an answer, but these are the places where we can start to go into that realm and say, an FTE does not look like, the output can be achieved in other ways than just an FTE, or just, you know, and so, you know, I would think it's a great way to task this new person to say, look, we want you to have the resources, but they might not have skin and blood.
And
so
we
to
would be
speak.
looking for somebody who has that is unique, as in we'd love to find someone who has law enforcement experience, at least past law enforcement experience, that even possibly could even be sworn in as a deputy, you know, to assist and help out with some other things as well. Like sort of like what we've done with Aaron, that has actually been a success, you know, for him. He handles a lot of IT, but he's a sworn deputy. He can pull you over tomorrow if you wanted to, or work a case, work a crash, or help out with different investigations. And that's always a little bit of a bonus to have somebody in there that's sworn in and help out with court and everything. So if we can find someone like that, that's the gem that we're looking for.
Oh, and, is this, that, what he mentioned in regards to the breakout rooms, I assume that we're gonna be having a deep conversation of that, about stuff like that when we go through the space
Yes.
study, right?
Yeah.
That will come front and center very soon.
Yeah, potential options for utilizing the entire courthouse complex for public safety needs, which would include maybe taking those folks who are in the EOC center and moving them to a traditional office space. Yeah, that space study is pretty close to being finalized.
So we're gonna be digging in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I will give each one of y'all an invite to come tour the sheriff's office at any time, so you can see it first,
We
see our
also-
space issues firsthand.
We're also taking into consideration the new courthouse. So
It's all part of the complex.
I don't know what, I mean, maybe later on, we need to get educated on what that would do for you.
I think the best way is me giving you a tour of it.
Yeah.
And if there's,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, I have to lean on Tara about as doing a tour.
Just so you don't lock us
The board
out.
has done it before in the past, under Sheriff Agnew, with the entire board has taken a field trip to the sheriff's office before. I don't know if that is something that is possible that we can do in the future.
Nothing we can't figure out.
Yeah. All right, we talked about the CIP not too long ago. The ones for this year, as you can see, is what we talked about with the radio tower. I know we talked about it the last one. If you have any questions, Mike is here for that. Then the other thing for FY27 is our weapon system replacement. What I mean by that is our sidearms. You know, the manufacturer recommends every 10 years for law enforcement. This the amount of rounds we put down range with open range, with our qualifying, all that. There's a lot of rounds that go through there. So that is those are just for this year. And then some future ones that we're actually gonna, hopefully we can get a couple grants for the FY28 for the 911 Communications Council. We don't know about that yet in 2028. And then also tagging along with the courthouse project is we will have to move the impound lot. And you see the amount there, about $500,000 in 2-year split for the impound lot relocation, because once we move that, we have to change it, because the way, when it was built in there, we had less restrictions and rules and stuff in there. We didn't have electric vehicles. You know, I think I shared with a few of y'all just how one electric vehicle, if it's in evidence and it's involved in a crash in the impound lot, we have to have 50 feet all the way around it. You know, because it can start fire, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can start fire, it can catch fire up to roughly 90 days after the crash. So we have to have that 50 feet radius around, which makes you extend it to a pretty large lot. Then it goes in for the Sheriff Administration updates, should be upgrades, 300,000 that would sort of go in helping out with the courthouse and hopefully some fixes for the space, you know, later on at that time. And then the CAD RMS upgrade 1.5, that is what we have right now, Central Square. We've been putting some Band-Aids on that. We're pretty happy with the last Band-Aid, but that is something that it is knocking at its end of life, and that will be in FY30s when we will replace that. And that does affect fire and rescue, animal control. They use that system just as much. At least on the CAD, I think we use the RMS a lot more.
That CAD, we got the CAD system back in 2008, so
Yeah.
for software, that's a pretty good lifespan. And it's getting more and more expensive to keep it, because the maintenance cost every year keeps going up, with a 10% kicker, I believe it is, so it's getting pretty expensive.
And then last is the Sally Port upgrades, which it's be a whole lot easier for you to see it, to understand what we need to do. But there are some safety concerns for it, and it's something that we've talked about in the past. As you see in GS, the General Services, that'll be in their budget as well. That's been asked in the past and just has been denied.
Where's the Sally Port? Is that for the courthouse or?
Yes, no, not for the new courthouse. That's what we currently have
Okay.
on there, where basically you can stand on the side of it and jump in if you want to. So there's some serious safety concerns there with our number of staffing and everything, you know, because we are short. When we transport prisoners, we bring them in, we have to have extra people in there just for that concern.
And on the CAD RMS upgrades, you said there were the cost to run the older software is getting incrementally larger. Is that also part of like, is the hardware that software is compatible with near its end of life as well?
So fortunately, last year, we just did an upgrade with Dan and IT. We just upgraded the servers to virtual machines, and we should be good for quite a while with the Windows server upgrade on that. But the maintenance fees are going up every year with Central Square.
Okay.
And we put it on in this year, thinking about the courthouse as well, because there's gonna be some modules that we're probably going to need with the new courthouse, with the secure facility in the bottom, with the control center.
Sheriff, do you see anything of concern financially potentially coming out of the General Assembly?
Yeah, I've seen a couple, number one, qualified immunity is on the table. Again, I read the bill for that just the other day. That's an issue. Some FOIA laws and all that where we don't, get reimbursed for some of the FOIAs that we give out, which is fine. I want people to know stuff, but it is an unfunded mandate. And there's some others that I'm very active and involved with the Virginia Sheriff Association.
And the unqualified immunity, for those that haven't been, that's more from a staffing perspective of folks saying, hey, if you don't have my back, I probably don't, this is a career.
Yeah, well, I would say that we probably would lose people if qualified immunity went away, because even just on the frivolous lawsuits that can get thrown out, or, not thrown out like where people be sued. But we would definitely lose a lot of people, without a doubt. We'd probably lose 50%. Is what we would lose.
Sure.
If that goes away.
15?
50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a big concern for a lot lot of our deputies, and I think they're question their career choice.
I would.
Yeah, because.
I'm sorry
of
to
that.
cut you off, you were talking about the association that you,
With the Virginia Sheriff Association. I mean, there's a lot of bills, I think I have about 10 that I got today that I haven't read yet, that I'm gonna be reading tonight, going over and reading them and voting whether we're gonna support them or not. But I'm sure there's a lot of unfunded mandates in there. And we always get unfunded mandates for training, that's every year.
all righty.
Sheriff Major, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, well, as Cliff is settling into the hot seat, wanted to just frame this next little bit of information for you. And so what you're about to see is really great work by our internal HR team led by Cliff. And there are organizations that will hire a third party to do what you're about to see. And so this is an example where we have utilized our own internal expertise and our own internal resources, and just really proud of Cliff and the work that he's done to give us a competitive analysis compared to where we are with other jurisdictions around us, and looking at this through a health insurance standpoint, through a salary standpoint. And so just really proud of his work, and thankful for the time and effort that he's put into this, and just wanted to share this because it's important to decide where we go in the future, but you have to have baseline data ultimately to understand where we are now. And so our goal is that on an annual basis, we share this information with you. We update it on a regular basis so that you can see where we were, where we're going, where we have grown, and where we can celebrate positive movement along this analysis. So Cliff, again, thank you for all your hard work on this. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thanks again for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of this forward-thinking data that we're going to start off with. The first one we're going to look at, there is a handout if you want an easier way to look at the health plan analysis. There's a bigger piece of paper right there, but we'll be referring to that shortly. So I was asked to do a health insurance analysis, basically measuring what the cost for an employee and the cost for the county is at varying levels, whether it's an individual plan, individual plus one, individual plus family, and the like. We are comparing ourselves and the schools. We have data for the schools, Lucien County schools, plus Chesterfield, Hanover, Henrico, Powhatan, and Louisa. These comparisons were made to like plans. So we chose the KA 500 plan for our county, and then we projected through the rest of the localities what their costs were for basically an equivalent plan. For Goodson County, it is Key Advantage 500, and there's a little bit of data missing here because I couldn't get Enrico to cooperate entirely, but for the purposes of our presentation, I think we're in good shape. So as we flip over here, what we've got going from left to right is each locality, us, the schools, Chesterfield, Hanover, Henrico, Powhatan, and Louisa going across. You may note that Powhatan and Louisa also use Key Advantage 500 plans. One of them is actually with the local choice like we are with Powhatan. Louisa is not. And again, this is stuff to look at in the future. You're not expecting you guys to really dig deep in this, but if you want to, you can. But if you look at the deductibles, out of pocket, office visits, very comparable across each locality. The big win or information I really want to call everybody's attention to is the green bars at the bottom. So just looking at Goodson County's column, you can see that the cost for an employee only, for the employee, for this very, very competitive health plan is $50 a month. You can see what our contribution as a county is for this particular plan. So the plan costs $807. The county is picking up $757 of that. And as you go down, again, looking at ours, employee plus a child, 278, employee plus a spouse, also 278, family plans with children or with the children and a spouse are 528. And then, as you just go across it in the bottom squares, you can see that schools is slightly more expensive. And people have asked me, well, why is that? Well, I think that has to do with how they've chosen to budget their contribution to the plan. But if you go a little further along, you can see that, again, if we just stick with employee only, in Chesterfield, it's $126, Hanover, $177, Rica, $123, drops down in Powhatan to 56, and then Louisa's $133. So over the years, this board and the boards have done, and the county have done an excellent job of honestly absorbing the cost. If we look at the family plan, you gotta say, if there was a more pro-Goochland, pro-family county than Goochland, I'm not seeing it here. Maybe some other jurisdiction, but with the folks that we mostly compete with, we are very competitive. At 520, very competitive doesn't even cover it. We are really competitive. At 528 for a family, whereas Hanover might be $1,207 for a family plan. And again, this is all information that was collated from the counties themselves. So this was shared for their 2025, 2026 plan. This is apples to apples. So again, you can get in a little bit more into the weeds on the detail, but one of the things I think we want to address and talk about as we move forward and are looking at what does the county want to be in relationship to taking care of its employees. This is a big component. The health plan, I gotta tell you, my wife says I'm never leaving. It's just that simple. I'm gonna be 80 and I'm still gonna be here cracking away at HR. Because again, and not only that, it's very, very, as our healthcare provider speaks to us, he says we take care of our employees. So anyhow, that's the first piece of data I wanted to share with you guys, and it's something that you can take with you. So,
board members, before we transition off this slide, so just order of magnitude, what you see here is a $500 deductible plan. That's 103 employees. This is not the major section of subscriptions. For example, most of our employees are taking the $250 deductible plan, 166 employees. Now, we didn't include the $250 plan here because every other comparison entity has a $250 deductible plan. We are kind of unique in that. Most of our employees are choosing the 250 plan. So just for apples to apples, we went with 500, which is 103 of our employees.
All right, so moving on to this hour analysis. This compensation analysis was, I'm going to read a little bit here, designed to focus on similar positions in localities that generally perform the same work as positions in Goochland County. This is based on publicly available data. So I want to slow down about that statement. Generally perform the same work as positions in Goochland County. One of the great things about what we're going to be doing as we go along is annually we will continue to refine what are generally accepted as comparable positions from county to county. And I think as we grow up as a county, we're going to also become more and more like other larger counties, especially with what the duties and responsibilities of an employee is. But for today, we're generally finding people that work in the same positions. Now, for this analysis, we did add New Kent to our list. So it's Henrico, Hanover, Chesterfield, Powhatan, Louisa, and New Kent. I want to mention the stuff on the bottom here. We made every attempt to compare comparable positions with similar titles, responsibilities, and work assignments. However, we are unique as a team. Some of our roles and responsibilities where our staff are performing multiple tasks that other counties are not doing. We mentioned that. In other jurisdictions, these same roles may be specialized with a focus for one aspect of work. So examples of that offices where this is the case include the Commissioner of Revenue with DMV Select, Clerk of Court, Treasurer, and Assessor. And as a clear example, there are several jurisdictions that the Commissioner's Office does not have DMV Select. And their people are assigned only to one piece of the duties that they're responsible for within that organization. Our team, as Dr. Raley has allotted, they're exceptional with the amount of cross-training, the amount of know-how that each employee takes on. And that translates into the entire county, but specifically these, we really wanted to make a call out here as we go along. So next slide. So we collected midpoint and minimum salaries here. Now, recognize what I'm talking about. This isn't how much do people make. This is if you are a starter level employee or an entry level employee and you are coming into position XYZ, the county, our county, other counties, we say that our minimum rate is this amount, $40,000, $60,000, whatever it is. We recognize through the process that we need to collect something that will talk a little bit more to what if you hire somebody that is not an entry-level person. So we chose the midpoint as a jumping off point. Again, this isn't talking specifically about how much people make. It is talking about what the counties would advertise if they were posting the position, what their min, what their max, what their midpoint might be. And these are all, again, based on their pay plans. Now, we'll talk more about what issues we had with some of their pay plans, but it does provide context for a potential career employee. Now, not all positions are represented. For example, you're not going to see a slide for a clerk of court. Most of that is not advertised, and it's getting blood out of a stone, honestly. They won't be shared. I can't get it out, but I think as we go annual with this every year, we'll get more and more of those positions where people will be willing to share with us, and we'll be able to get more of an idea of what pay we're happening for the Commonwealth's attorney, as an example, and for the clerk of court. I want to refer to the table on the right. So when we talk about the midpoint, the question is, what do you mean midpoint? Well, best practice, and this is done across a large part of Virginia and in a lot of other places I've been, they basically say, okay, your starter rate is your minimum rate, your maximum rate is what somebody can expect to earn after 30 years within a career within that role. And you take the midpoint, obviously, and you divide that by 2. So the question is how much percentage can a position grow and what each county is utilizing as that percentage. So you can see that Goochland, Chesterfield, Henrico, and Hanover, where I've got career period 30 years, they're basically saying you should be 35% above minimum, or in a 30-year career, 70%. That is the standard that we're seeing throughout Virginia. You can see that the smaller counties, Powhatan, New Kent, and Louisa, have shrunk that number. So over a period of 15 years, a New Kent employee could expect maybe a 17.5 above the minimum. And Louisa is a little bit higher than that, 32%, and hasn't quite caught up, and Powhatan is only at 30. So these are just things to consider that employees are going to see, potential employees are going to see as they seek work elsewhere. Yes.
Is that, I know sometimes we get best practices that stood true for 15 or 20 years, but with the inflation we've seen in the last 3 years,
Yeah.
is that factoring, is that being factored into 70% growth over 30 years, 35%
Right.
growth?
So,
I mean, you'd be taking a pay decrease now over time.
Yeah, and I think that county's going to have to look long and hard at it. If we look at this moment in time, we are, with our sister counties, Chesterfield, Henrico, and Hanover, we're in lockstep with them. We performed a salary analysis with Evergreen in 2022/2023 And that's where they landed after comparing, I think they did 14 comparators, not just the 7 that are in our group here today. And my excitement is that we can continue to look at this annually and see where everybody is trending and collect the data to your points in the past. So yes, we'll be really paying close attention because 70% might not even take care of hyperinflation in 2029 or something like that. So again, we did crosswalk and Chief mentioned the crosswalk thought process earlier. What we mean by that is that we made every attempt to make sure that we say HR analyst. What does an HR analyst do? Oh, maybe that's called an HR coordinator in Louisa, or maybe that's called an HR, manager in another smaller environment. So did a lot of calling around to try to narrow that down. I think we'll get better at that too, as again, I continue to have these conversations with HR departments and leaders throughout this group and around the state. So as we go along this, your eye is going to be drawn to numbers on each chart. It's just human nature. What we really want to do is kind of pull back a little bit. You'll have all the data to look at, and it's good stuff, but we really want to focus on the median. So when I say median, it's not average. So if we're talking about, I'll just flip to the first chart here. This is animal care. The median rate for an animal protection officer, from what I could gather, is us. By median, we have 7 counties, and we chose an odd number of counties on purpose so that we could come out with 7 and say, okay, number 4 is the median midpoint. So you can see that for animal protection officer, we are a starter rate at 49,633. Our midpoint is 67,005. Now, whether counties are hiring to their standards and to their pay plans is another topic. This just basically is what is publicly available from them. We made some adjustments as I've talked to departments, many departments, where we knew for sure that while they're publishing a rate XYZ, they're hiring and they're advertising at ABC. So we've done a lot of that. I don't think we've done everything we can yet. We will have to continue to monitor this relatively closely. So as we go down here, you can see that generally speaking in the animal care protection department, we're either yellow or a little bit red. And red sometimes can be, danger Will Robinson, or red could be, we're slightly below the median. And that's a talking point as to where we need to take things in the future, or where the board would like to take things in the future. As we provide this data and start having the conversations we need to have about, are we in a position to get the right type of employees? I mean, the sheriff was just talking about how you can't find people, and this is one data point. Health plan that we talked about is one data point. Compensation is another data point. So again, I'm just going to pop through these. I'm not going to really call attention to them, but you got animal care protection here. Move on to clerk of court. Oh, I did leave that slide in. You can see it's almost all blank. This data is not that relevant, honestly, because it's basically just us and maybe one other reporting entity. Little bit of a smorgasbord here, county attorney, administrative position with the registrar's office. Bit more green coming in there. Moving on, HR and finance, looking pretty green there. People think that I've done all this. This all existed before I got here. So I didn't just raise all the minimums for the HR people. Combination of commissioner of revenue and treasurer, and again, we have to continue to refer back to what does the commissioner of revenue level 1 employee do versus one in another jurisdiction. Here we are, IT and GIS. And Dan and I have had some clear discussions about where specifically IT network engineer is. While we're all publishing these rates, notice I don't have Chesterfield, New Kent, Powhatan here. We have to figure out what they're doing as well, but we're already finding that trying to get an entry-level IT network engineer into the universe of Goochland at that rate is not impossible, but extremely difficult to get the kind of quality we need. So we're gonna have to have a hard look at some of these. Here we are in the assessor's office, a little bit more red coming through for the assistant assessor, that'd be Christie's role. And then as we get into a higher level appraiser. This customer service. And again, we have quite a bit of data for an entry-level customer service specialist, and you could go across and say, yeah, we don't look too bad there. Something to think about. Utilities, we did a lot of analysis, myself and Elizabeth and her team, as to, what are their roles. And we got a lot of data from other counties that's been added in literally the last week or so. Building inspection, there's been a lot of work over the years to make sure that we're doing well by our building inspectors. Then we move into environmental though, we're looking a little tougher here. And again, it's hard to get apples to apples. So for example, a lot of what Louisa does is contracted out. So that there is no data for Louisa as an example in this particular slide. Planning and zoning, you can see I've got the slide back up, we screwed up here. General services, this includes our new risk and safety manager role, custodians. We have career path for custodian 1, 2, 3, 4. I only put custodian 1 here because honestly, a lot of other counties don't have a career path for a custodian. Same with facilities technician. So we have the starter position, but we have career paths that's assigned for technician 2, 3, 4. Parks and Rec, similar where we've got groundskeeper 1, but we actually have groundskeeper 2 level as well. Sheriff, you can see that we've got some talking points here for sheriff easily, very easy to recognize, especially having seen all of the green and yellow we've seen in other parts of the county. Fire rescue, a comment here, the firefighter, EMS, BLS, ALS, and paramedic, you'll notice that the rates are all the same going across. There is career development in the larger counties where they actually have different levels of responsibility built into higher level titles that we as an organization are trying to address, but through stipends as opposed to through a career development plan that we're working towards. So again, that was going to be a conversation with the chief as you guys, as the board is contemplating these numbers. And you can see that as we go higher into the ranks, we see a lot of red as well. So got a few takeaways here. You want to chat with us so I can keep it going?
Yeah, no, I think ultimately this is really good baseline data. And then the question is, where do we go from here? Okay, now we have this information, so what? There's green, there's yellow, there's red, and how do we use this to drive decisions and inform the future work that we want to do? One of the things that I've identified in collaboration with the team is we don't have great salary scale structures. You have a minimum, you have a midpoint, you have a maximum, but there's no matrix for placement on the scale, and then there's no methodology for moving down the scale with a year's worth of successful performance. We have very limited structure when it comes to our compensation plans. So I think there's tremendous opportunities for us to strengthen that with many organizations I've been a part of, like here's where you enter, this is the next step, this is the next step, this is the next step, and it's a structure that's built with increments from top to bottom. And if you build the scale the right way, you have it start here and you have it end here and it's 70%, and then you change the entry and the rest of the scale adjusts. And so there are some things that we can do in time to make sure that for all of our positions, we have a step scale that certainly is transparent and serves in the best interest of our employees. So I think given the information, and it's late, and we've been doing a lot of great work tonight, there's something for us to think about as we move forward. Is again, much like we talked about with a 5-year plan for fire rescue and sheriff's department, where do we want to be in the future? Like, looking back 3 years from now, 5 years from now, like, what's our goal? And where do we want to be with salary? Where do we want to be with health insurance? Where do we want to be with maybe other employment benefits, be it tuition assistance or professional growth? And, you know, do we want to establish a goal? Like, let's put our line in the sand and say, hey, we want to be the leader when it comes to X, or we want to be, you know, in the top 3 when it's compared to other jurisdictions. I think that's a conversation I'm interested in having with the board, and, you know, identifying those goals and how we define total compensation. Do we focus on just salary, or are we going to focus on salary and health insurance? Do we look at total comp? One of the things that Cliff and I are talking about is providing a total compensation statement to our employees and say, here is the contribution that Goochland County is providing on your behalf. VRS, technology, health insurance contributions, salary, life insurance, like a total contribution statement really says the investment that we're making in our employees. So just starting to have that conversation, and again, you know, a desire potentially to transition to a step pay plan that has a sound salary structure. Some things to think about as we would build a future compensation strategy is, you know, what are the goals? What's the philosophy upon which we're going to base those goals? And, you know, what are some elements that maybe we want to consider as we're building an overall compensation policy related to the structures, how you move on a scale, how you get a salary increase, what happens if you're promoted, what happens if you're demoted, transfer to a like position, reclassify, like some of those things we don't necessarily have codified right now and memorialized. So an overall compensation plan can include these things that provides the roadmap and then ultimately provides some transparency for our employees. Provided in your packet just a sample of a compensation goal statement, just to maybe get the neurons firing a little bit. But you know, this organization clearly said they want to be the leader in overall compensation amongst regional organizations. You know, is this just to start for conversation? So I will pause there for a moment, board, because we've given you a lot of information. Just wanted to know what your initial gut is when it comes to compensation for our employees, where we might want to go as we build the budget.
Yeah, first, I noticed, Cliff, you left off the Board of Supervisors. It would be,
I was hoping nobody
quite
would notice
revealing
that.
information.
We do have that data.
That can be collected, that exists.
I like the step model that you presented.
Yeah.
And, I mean, ideally, I would like us to at least all be in at least yellow. I think that we need to, with the last administrator, my goal in the current budget, learning curve, understood that there were some selected pay increases for, you know, certain departments. But I wanted it to be my goal to get us all the way close, you know, to be competitive across the board. So at bare minimum, I would like us to be all in yellow. And then from there, absolutely love the structure, because I think that in it of itself is of great value to an employee, because they're not wondering, am I gonna get a 1% raise? Am I gonna get a 2% raise? Am I gonna get a 3% raise? They've got something to hang on to and a reason not to leave if they have that known structure. And also the contribution of the healthcare plan. But most of all, what I really like about it is for a budgeting process, it makes everything easier, because you can plug in that one number and the whole spreadsheet can update.
If you have the right salary scale structure with definitive increments from 0 to 30, let's call it a fixed dollar amount or a percentage. You can say, board members, here's what it costs to fund the scale next year if everybody has a year's worth of successful performance, and you get that cost. And then you can say, well, in addition to funding the scale, here's a cost of living adjustment that we could provide on top of that. And it could be 1% or fixed dollar amount or whatever it is. So you make two decision points to fund the scale A, and then a COLA on top of that. It does make budgeting a lot more transparent and a lot easier to forecast and things.
You know, when I looked at these, of course, you focus on the red, and I noticed a lot of them were very close to yellow. So I would say that should be a goal, but I don't believe we should focus all on yellow, because there are some instances when you're green, you've got a specialized job that you've
Right.
got to pay up for, something, you know, that may be a rare thing, so I'd say, I wouldn't say all yellow.
No, I'm at yellow minimum.
Oh, okay. So, but, when we pay attention to green, are we paying too much? I mean, I know that's an unpopular statement, but you think you're gonna look at everything, you need to look at all of it. And not just, you know,
I think, oh, sorry, Charlie. I'd like us to go back and figure out where we went wrong, because we spent a lot of money in 2021 to do a study. So A, thank you for doing it in-house. This seems to be much better than what we got, by the way. And the board made a decision to sort of get everybody to that level. And I felt like ever since then, our raises and our increases have been in line with the other localities. To see that we're so far off is it's a little disheartening, because we felt like we were keeping pace. So to find out did we really get everybody there, because we did a budget amendment to bring folks up to these levels. So how did everybody outpace us so quickly when I feel like we were there? The second one, and with some of the folks in the room, this may not be a very popular topic, but I feel it's important to bring up. Dr. Riley, you talked about a plan of knowing where things are. I think we need to look at the constitutional officers as well, because we have a big election coming up in a couple of years, but then a couple of years ago, when we had some new folks joining as constitutionals, we realized we don't really have a policy, and I don't know if that's mandated by the state board or where that's. I don't want to have any say over how that goes, other than that we have a policy. So if somebody's running for office, they know how much money they're going to potentially be making.
Yeah, that could be part of the compensation policy, including our staff, but constitutional officers and those kind of things.
Yeah.
You can add that to the.
I don't know how that works or what our role is. I
Yeah.
think previous administration was working with other localities, because they've had to solve, somebody's had to figure this out.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. Very helpful.
There's a couple, but it's funny, our conversation we were having not 3 hours ago. One of the reds here, a series of reds are environmental. Well, if we follow the money, we're not collecting what we need to be collecting for environmental, different environmental, what do you call them, tasks or things we need to be doing. I mean, we're collecting it, but they're way low. We did the analysis. So, like, I think what it tells me is, if your first question is follow the money, that's not a bad idea. Like, if we're making more money on the environmental side when we do these reviews, we do these analyses, then it makes the argument that much easier.
Yeah.
We can say, look, we've got a person going out in the field, and what we're recouping is adequate to staff at this level and be competitive. But additionally, I don't want to tip, this is video, I don't want to tip other counties off. But I'm hopeful that one of the changes we're making time-wise allows us to be able to stay where we want to be on an annual basis. We've just got to hone in on that policy so we started at the right place and we have the right mission behind it. Because I really do think that timing change is huge. Has the chance to be huge. So I think if we've had changes from 2020, I think it's partly the way we've had to go about making those adjustments at the last minute. And they don't all flow through, rather than just saying, here's our policy, here's what we're doing. You know, we're not really worried about veering from the yellow because we're always going to be, you know, where we need to be.
Right.
So anyway, and then also, Sheriff and Chief Ferguson can speak to this. It's still a fairly solid statement to say, once we get people in-house, we do a good job of retaining them. Like, let's play into what we do well. We already do that. Let's continue to make that our thing, because the cost savings of not having attrition far outweigh some of the 2% and 3% and 4% arguments we make, or we have the discussions.
The overall experience that an employee has is one that is challenging to quantify, and we're doing that through the experience survey that we're doing with our employees. However, if we can invest in our employees where they feel validated, continual training, current in their role, like, so total compensation can be, hey, we're going to provide X amount of dollars of training to you to keep your skills current and fresh and help you build career ladders. Like, it's the total experience that we're providing for the employee. Yes, salary is critical, health insurance is critical, but what else are we investing in that employee from a training standpoint to keep them current and feel validated in their work?
I agree with Jonathan. I think we ought to try to eliminate the red. But I do think there are probably instances where we need to have some green. But I think a motto or a slogan or something would be, we want to be a preferred employer.
The employer of
And
choice.
if you seek that, and I don't know if you ever reach it, but you gotta keep trying. And, you know, then you eliminate having to go out and do job fairs, and, you know, people will seek us out. And there's a reason for it, and it's not always salary, as you all know. It's morale, it's the work environment in itself, and all the things you just talked about, which I'm encouraged, because I see you making some headway.
There's positive
And I like
momentum. We have our own employees recruiting folks right now.
Yeah.
So our
there you
own
go.
employees are saying, you know
There you
what,
go.
you need to come over here and work for us. And that's really awesome.
It's a fun place to work, we still get the job done.
Well, board members, I am grateful for the conversation. This has been a heavy lift, and we've had some great dialogue here today. And of course, this is just but one step on the process. And the next step is for us to have continued conversations individually or in small groups, and getting prepared for my presentation to you on the 17th, where I'll present you with a balanced budget of a recommendation for consideration, but that is certainly not the end-all be-all. That's another benchmark, because ultimately, you know, we're going to hear some feedback from our community along the way, and town halls and opportunities to engage with our public throughout the course of March. Public hearings that are going to take place in April, and then ultimately you're slated right now for your budget approval on May 5th. So a lot of steps along the way, public feedback along the way, conversations with board members. I expect there'll be some revenue adjustments, some expenditure adjustments. We'll be turning knobs and pulling levers to get this thing ultimately ready for your final approval on May 5th. So we're working behind the scenes to gather a lot of information and run a whole bunch of reports so we can continue to feed you with good information to make an informed decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so with a motion and a second.
No, sir, you can
Yours
adjourn.
go ahead.
All right,
At
state
your-
the
at your
date.
words.
All right, so I guess we will adjourn until the February 3rd
February 3rd.
Board of Supervisors meeting. Adjourn.
Good job, Cliff.